Chapter 24:01. This immediately gave Duan Yu a special sense of crisis. He kept feeling that these dozens of vines seemed to be targeting the little white mink he was hiding in his arms. Jojo, what kind of bizarre situation was this? Or could it be that he was just being paranoid and making a mistake? The layer of ice in front of them suddenly cracked open, and Duan Yu and Rongqing could clearly see what was underneath the layer of ice. That clump of densely packed tree roots was like a giant cocoon in front of everyone's eyes. Meanwhile, the vines that writhed like snakes extended from the tree roots. There was an uncountable number of them, and they seemed to grow endlessly. It was impossible to completely cut them off no matter how hard they tried. Duan Yu creased his brows. The group braved the torrential rain and flew into the air, circling above the tree. As spiritual energy crisscrossed, numerous Sangzhou and Nether Province guards simultaneously attacked the tree that had suddenly burrowed out from under the layer of ice. Rongqing's expression was calm, but her gaze was a bit odd. Don't you find it odd that a tree is actually growing under this layer of ice? Odd was odd, but Duan Yu had no time to think about Rongqing's words in detail. Hundreds of vines swept towards him, as if they wouldn't stop until they killed him. At this time, Miss Qiao, who had been sleeping groggily for a while, poked her head out. She happened to see a large group of people attacking the tree in front of her. Her heart skipped a beat, and the little girl's beady eyes immediately turned round. It was Qiuqiu. To be precise, it should be Qiuqiu's seed fragment. She immediately reacted and jumped out of Duan Yu's arms without a second word. The small blanket that was originally wrapped around her naturally fell off as well. The little snow-white ball swiftly pounced towards the vines on the opposite side. That scene shocked Duan Yu so much that his expression changed drastically, and he immediately withdrew the divine energy he sent out. He then shouted in alarm, "Everyone stop!" He reached out to grab her, but the little fellow was especially slippery and had already pounced onto one of the very thick vines. Duan Yu caught nothing, but he had already dashed over. When vassal Prince Rong saw this, he also jumped in fright and quickly chased after him. "Your Highness Prince Chun, what are you doing?" Duan Yu looked in horror at the little snow-white ball sprawled on the vine. He saw her hugging that vine and seemingly turning her head to glance at him. In the next second, she was abruptly dragged into a crack in the ice layer by that thick vine. Jojo, Duan Yu's liver and guts were torn apart. With a cry of alarm, he had already darted over and slid into that crevice with a whoosh. "Your Highness!" The Sangzhou guards were scared out of their wits. Now, His Highness actually jumped into that crack of ice layer of his own accord. What was to be done? The Emperor would to them. "Stay here." After Qiuqiu Yu of the Yu of the Tsin of Yu of the Yu of Yu of the Yu of the Yu of Yu, the group of Sangzhou guards looked at the two of them with stupefied expressions as they disappeared in front of them without any hesitation. They wished they could beat their chests and cry out loud. Fuck! It was fine if Prince Chun was willful, but why was the usually calm, self-restrained, intelligent, and cautious vassal Prince Qing also so willful? That was Prince Qing's only son, the Princess Consort's pearl. This was bad. If something happened to His Highness and the vassal prince in the underground ice layer, they should be prepared to be skinned alive by the Emperor and Prince Qing and have their entire family exterminated. Chapter 24:02. After staring blankly for a moment, Min Yas's eyes suddenly flickered. He tossed the horsewhip to a Han behind him and coldly said, "You guys go out first and wait at Flat Mountain Town." "Master, big brother," everyone couldn't help but exclaim. Akir ran over, her eyes red. She wanted to grab hold of Dark Yasa's robes, but he waved his sleeve, and with a whoosh, he nimbly charged into the crack in the ice. No one knew what was below the ice. Everyone gathered around and only saw a deep, serene ice cave that seemed to lead to the depths of the Earth's core. They didn't know how far down it was. "Akir! Akir!" A Han grabbed the weeping Akir, who wanted to jump down, and angrily slapped her. "Are you crazy? With your cultivation, you'll be throwing your life away if you go down." There were many ice caves below, and there were many forks in the road. Who knew which corner they'd slide to if they jumped in? Perhaps they'd be trapped under this glacier forever, unable to come out even if they died? Then what we do now? Akir's wails shook the heavens as she shrieked. We only came to find a snow domain divine flower, but we didn't find the flower, and we don't know whether His Highness is dead or alive. Do we really have to leave here and wait for him at Flat Mountain Town? Listen to Big Brother, Ahan said with a sullen face. No, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving here. I'll wait here for Big Brother Yas to come back. Akir was crying like a tearful doll as she shrieked at everyone. Ahan didn't give her a chance to speak any more nonsense and directly slapped her head, knocking her out. He had two subordinates carry Akir and immediately turned to leave with a sullen face. Ahan had always followed his big brother's orders and never disobeyed them in public, but in private. After the noisy group of Underworld Province guards left, one of the Sangzhou guards said bitterly, "Then what do we do? Send two people to the Emperor to report this matter." Everyone looked at each other. Only a fool would report it and directly face the wrath of the Emperor and Prince Qing. The Sangzhou guards were conflicted and uncomfortable. After Arbor's small body was pulled down by the vine, he slid down the ice hole. The vines were very nimble and flexible. They dragged her back and forth in the honeycomb-like cave, dragging her deeper and deeper. She didn't know if they wanted to drag her into the depths of the Earth's core. The little fellow only felt that his body kept falling down, falling deeper and deeper, but there was not a trace of nervousness in his heart. From time to time, Duan Yu would fling out a burst of divine energy to stop the vine's dragging speed. But overall, it did not have much effect on such a thick sapling. Arbor put its two little paws on the vines. Feeling the intimacy of the small tree, it felt a bit happy. Who would have thought that he would be able to see the figure of little three in this strange trip to the heavenly ice and snow region? According to the ranking of the seed fragments, the person in front of him should be called Little Three. Little Tree only instinctively dragged his little Masta and ran. In any case, in his days, he only felt that there was something he wanted on that human, so he must obtain it. Otherwise, he might regret it for the rest of his life if he missed it. Now, he felt this little dumpling approaching and feeling her softly hugging him. The sapling's heart leaped with joy, and the memories that originally belonged to him gushed forth in an unending stream. Chapter 24:03. Qiuqiu suddenly did a carp flip and squatted on Mo Lian's shoulder. After carefully sensing for a moment, it said with a comforted expression, "Master is awesome." She found Little Three. Mo Lian raised her brows. Where? She should still be in that extremely cold place. Mo Lian's brows knitted together. Can't you summon her soul back? The little treant lowered its beady eyes. I can't. Huh? Mo Lian snorted. The little trent's body shuddered, and it immediately wailed, I am not omnipotent. Qiuqiu is already very useful. Qiuqiu will be even more useful in the future. Mo Lian was skeptical about the definition of the word useful. How much longer until we reach that place? Probably another day. The little treant meekly said softly to its fingers. If we find out that you didn't use your method when you had it, Mo Lian said faintly, we will kill you. The little treant pitifully shrunk its small body and chanted again in its mind. When Master comes back, Qiuqiu will definitely fiercely complain. There are also Qiuqiu's seed fragments over there. How can we summon them back? Strictly speaking, they belong to the same body, so there was naturally no distinction between them. When Little Master stayed by Little Three's side, she felt exactly the same as when she stayed by Qiuqiu's side. Mo Lian didn't say anything else, and only ordered 7th Yin to speed up their journey. The little fellow hugged the vine and fell into an ice cave. She twisted and turned along the cave, occasionally glancing back at Duan Yu with a conflicted expression. She originally wanted to tell him not to worry, but she freaking shocked herself by letting out an ow when she opened her mouth. In the end, it slid all the way to the bottom. When it flopped and fell into a small ice river, its round body fluttered twice before it was suddenly grabbed by someone. Then, it was lifted up and fiercely pulled into someone's arms. Arbor could hear Duan Yu's frantic heartbeat. That indescribably panic-stricken heart was terrifying, as if it was about to jump out of his chest. She reached out her little paw and patted his chest. At this moment, both of them were drenched. Her fur was soaked with water, and now it drooped listlessly in one place. And as Duan slid down, his white robes were also torn and tattered by the occasional protruding icicles. Wah! With the sound of water, the roots of the small tree that was originally submerged in the water suddenly opened up and prepared to attack. Roar! The little fellow hastily turned around and roared at him before quickly hugging Duan Yu's hand that was about to release this divine energy. Duan Yu glanced at her in confusion. "You know him?" Nodding madly. The little fellow's soft and adorable appearance warmed Duan Yu's heart, and he reached out to stroke her head. When vassal Air Rong worriedly followed over, he couldn't help but be dumbstruck. He saw that His Highness Prince Chun had already changed into a clean set of robes and was hugging a snow-white ball. He was using his divine energy to dry the water stains on her body while also combing her messy fur. In the tranquil ice water, the enormous tree that attacked them earlier was gently sliding its dozens of vines and obediently squatting in the water. It didn't look like it wanted to attack anyone at all. What was going on? Where did this inexplicable sense of harmony come from? Chapter 2404. Vassal Prince Rong dumbfoundedly glanced at Prince Chun before hastily walking forward. "Your Highness!" Rong Qing's body suddenly tensed, and she reflexively pulled Duan Yu aside. "Be careful!" Swish! An arrow brushed past Vassal Prince Rong's left shoulder and landed in the frozen river with a bang. The explosion instantly infuriated the sapling that had quieted down, causing it to brandish several hundred vines with bared fangs and brandished claws, attacking a figure. The newcomer was Ming Yasi. He didn't express much shock when he saw the vines attacking him. He merely calmly built an earth wall in front of him. Following that, he took out several fire spirit talismans from his inner world and looked at the sapling in the frozen river with a solemn expression. Swish, swish, swish. Several fire spirit talismans flew over and directly ignited on the sapling's body. Swish, 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 swish. The sapling shook its branches and blocked all the vines in front of it, blocking the surging firepower attack. Bang, bang, bang. Ow, ow. Seeing the small tree being forced back by the fire talismans and the branches being set ablaze, the little girl was furious. She turned around and roared at Dark Yas. It wasn't that the sapling couldn't deal with this Ming Yasi. Rather, the sapling had just promised her that it would obediently crouch down and not attack people. Duan Yu reached out and pressed down the little fellow's fleshy body that was struggling. Duan Yu directly carried her to the frozen river and glanced at that tree in astonishment before turning back to look at Ming Yasi. "Why did you follow us?" This Ming Yasi was probably born with a mismatched horoscope, so every time they met, he had the urge to attack. "You're Qiao Mu." At this moment, Ming Yasi's gaze was fixated on Qiao Qiao as he sternly enunciated each word. Before jumping into the ice crevice earlier, he clearly heard Duan Yu call out Jojo. If it weren't for that Jojo, why would Duan Yu jump into the ice crevice without hesitation? Miss Qiao was instantly enraged. Although no clues could be seen on the snow-white little Martin's face, Ming Yasi had a strange feeling. He was certain that what he had said was the truth. No wonder when I saw this little guy, I couldn't help but like him. No wonder that guy Duan Yu ran off after snatching her. All the strange things that had happened before could be explained with words at this moment. A faint smile appeared on Ming Yasi's grave and stern face. He looked up at Duan Yu and Rong Qing, then looked up at the thick glacier. "Duan Yu, do you suddenly feel like continuing the sparring just now?" Duan Yu gave him "Do you think I'm scared of you" look. Mayes didn't say another word as he shot out a few more arrows. His body flew over as a stream of flowing earth spirits surged through the ground. Duan Yu sneered. With a wave of his hand, several hundred ice spikes suddenly broke free from the surrounding ice walls and whooshed toward Dark Yas. "Idiot! Fighting with him in a space filled with water spirit force?" Courting death. The The several hundred ice spikes were all blocked by a transparent earth wall. A cold glint flickered in Duan Yu's eyes. With a wave of his hand, the raven-bone fan transformed into a longsword. Don't blame the heavens and accuse others for courting death. Crack! What the hell was that sound? Everyone's hearts skipped a beat. All of a sudden, the entire layer of ice beneath their feet fell down. Everyone was speechless as they abruptly fell down along with the broken layer of ice. Chapter 24:05. Miss Xiao, who was squatting at the side and watching, instantly felt that something was amiss. Just as she wanted to escape, her petite body was already coiled up by a vine, and she involuntarily fell down with it. Thankfully, the drop wasn't too high. In a flash, Duan Yu, Rong, Ming Yasi, and the others all landed on the ground. Their bodies swayed slightly when they stepped on the slippery ice layer, but they steadied themselves. Plop! The little girl fell from above and plunged headfirst into a pile of ice dregs. It hurt so much that her hair stood on end. Duan Yu twitched his mouth, and his figure flashed to her side. He quickly picked her up from the pile of ice dregs and helped her remove a few pieces of ice from her forehead before rubbing her head. Your Highness? Rong's feeble voice was heard. Duan Yu turned around with the little fellow in his arms, and his pupils contracted abruptly. Miss Xiao, who was in his arms, was startled for a second before she suddenly cheered with a howl. She squirmed her limbs, wanting to jump down from Duan Yu's arms. Wah wah wah, wah. There were actually several hundred snow domain divine flowers planted here. Their growth was delightful, and each of these snow domain divine flowers was clearly better than the one they obtained earlier, especially the largest snow domain divine flower in the center. Wow, this was a super sacred grade medicinal herb, right? Jojos, they were all Jojos. The little fellow excitedly rolled around in Duan Yu's arms and impatiently wanted to roll down, but he reached out to stop her. Don't mess around. Can you even pick them with your small body? Miss Xiao instantly wilted. Oh right, the snow domain divine flowers before her looked extremely beautiful, but she raised her hand to look at her small claws, and she was so miserable that she wanted to vomit blood. She couldn't pick them. Even if she picked them, there was no place to store them. This was equivalent to looking at a large piece of fatty meat in front of her, but she couldn't eat it. So painful that Jojo's small eyes were so sorrowful that tears could drip out. Duan Yu, who had been observing her expression, silently twitched his mouth. His fingers brushed past her furry head, and he coughed lightly and said, "If you howl once, I'll help you pick them. If you howl twice, I'll help you pick them all." Ow! Why is my great aunt howling? Why did she feel like she had been tricked by Duan Yu, this damn fool? Something felt wrong. Duan Yu couldn't help but want to laugh out loud. In the end, he barely managed to restrain himself, but he couldn't suppress the smile on his face no matter what. Rong was speechless. Roar! Lord Jojo's eyes suddenly lit up. She stared at Ming Yas, who had already plucked a snow domain divine flower, and turned to look at her. Crawl, crawl, crawl. Miss Xiao clung to Duan Yu's lapel with all her might, and the latter helplessly patted her head. All right, I got it. I'll pick it now. The strange thing was that Ming Yasi only took one stalk of the snow domain's divine flower before standing aside and coldly watching Duan Yu busying himself. Lord Jojo secretly waved his little paw and thought to himself, at least he knows what's good for him. This guy must have felt that he couldn't beat Duan Yu and Rong with 2 fists, so he decided to be obedient. The little fellow squatted on the side and occasionally extended her paw to give directions. Duan Yu's method of plundering the snow domain's divine flowers was quite practiced. He clearly didn't look like someone who was harvesting medicinal herbs for the first time. As long as one didn't get close to the flower, it was very convenient and simple to use divine energy to envelop things from a distance. It wasn't long before Duan Yu collected an entire patch of snow domain's divine flowers into his storage talisman. Chapter 24:06. After Duan Yu dug out the divine flower of the snow domain, A shallow pit was revealed at the bottom. Arbor's sharp eyes noticed that there seemed to be something bright inside the pit. It shook its eyes and then rolled over it. It rolled especially smoothly and quickly. The corners of the mouths of the people nearby twitched when they saw that greedy look. Miss Chow only realized something was wrong after rolling over. Why was it that whenever she ran away now, it was only logical for her to roll? Was this appropriate? The little fellow had already seen what was inside the pit. It was a transparent treasure crystal about the size of her body. There was a blood-red color in the crystal's center. What kind of good stuff was this? It looked extraordinary at first glance, so it must be a very rare tool refinement material. The lotus that was given to her. A certain little eye curved. When Duan Yu and the others walked over, they saw that little fellow hugging the treasure crystal about the size of her body and turning around unsteadily. Suddenly, a red light shot out from the treasure crystal. Duan Yu's eyes turned cold, and he swiftly rushed forward to scoop up that little fellow. Jojo. In their panic, Duan Yu didn't care about formalities and directly called her by her name. However, Miss Chow was a bit dizzy and paralyzed in his palm. The red light that shot out of the precious crystal entered her soul body in an instant. Even her spiritual sense body, which had been lying lazily on its back, seemed to be stimulated and jumped up with a whoosh. Jojo? Duan Yu was inexplicably flustered. He reached out to rub her small head, but she didn't react at all. The three of them saw the red light flash earlier, but now, the little fellow suddenly fainted. Aaron walked up to take a look. When he saw that this little ferret's breathing was steady, as if she had only fainted temporarily, he couldn't help but ask curiously, "It should be fine. Let's lay it flat for a look first." Duan Yu didn't let go of her and looked up at the transparent crystal that fell to the ground. His handsome brows furrowed. "Is this a great void treasure crystal?" Crown Prince Rong picked up the crystal, turned around, and nodded at him. "It looks 70 to 80% similar. Then there should be no problem." Duan Yu quickly calmed down. Legend has it that the crystal core inside a great void treasure crystal can greatly increase spiritual conscious. It can be considered an item that can only be encountered by chance, Duan Yu murmured as he looked down at the little fellow in his arms. "What are you doing?" Ming Yasi's voice rang out from beside him. Duan Yu looked up and saw that the cluster of trees that had been quietly sitting in the ice river suddenly spread out its vines and swiftly swam towards them. Its appearance was very strange. It looked like a tree, but it was wrapped in a cocoon by countless vines. It was impossible to see its original appearance. Say it's not a tree, but it didn't feel like anything else. Duan Yu narrowed his eyes and retreated 2 steps with the little girl in his arms. He shouted with uncertainty, "Stop!" The sapling did stop, but it still bared its fangs and brandished its claws at Duan Yu and the others to express its displeasure. Of course it was dissatisfied. Master Silver is fine just now and was with these 3 people. In less than 2 minutes, Master Silver fainted. "Don't worry, she's fine," Duan Yu reflexively said and stroked Miss Chiao's furry head. "Let her slowly absorb the crystal core. She should wake up soon." Ming Yasi glanced at the sapling from the corner of his eyes. "What the heck is this?" Chapter 2407. Duan Yu was in a bad mood, so he naturally couldn't be bothered with this fellow. Ming Yasi couldn't help but shout angrily, "Don't think I want to waste my breath with you. If it weren't for Jojo, I wouldn't even bother with you." Duan Yu expressionlessly glanced at him, looking like he couldn't be bothered with this person. Ming Yasi couldn't help but be infuriated. "Humph, the reason I didn't fight over the Snow Domain's divine flower with you is that I only need 1 stalk. I'll leave the rest to Jojo. It's not for you." Duan Yu rolled his eyes at him. Wrong. Though why did he feel like these 2 people's conversation was so childish? Oh wait, it was His Highness Yasi. So childish. His Highness Prince Chun simply ignored him, so it was clear that he couldn't be bothered to talk to him. Ming Yasi shouted at Duan Yu again. "How do we get out?" Duan Yu also knitted his brows when he looked up at the thick layer of ice above them. When he first came down, he followed the tree and slid all the way down through the honeycomb-like ice caves. Now that they wanted to go back up, it seemed a bit difficult, unless they could find their original path and go back up, or they could directly break through the layer of ice above. However, it looked like these two possibilities were minuscule. They could tell with a glance how thick the layer of ice was above them. It wasn't impossible for the three of them to break through this layer of ice if they combined their strength, but that this way, it would take some effort, and the three of them would have to cooperate well. From the looks of it, it was most likely impossible to get Ming Yasi to cooperate with them. Rong Qing said, "Let's try to find a passage up later." "Find a passage." Ming Yasi harumphed. "Easy for you to say. Why, I jumped down just now. I had to make so many turns that I don't even know how many ice caves I went through. If I could go back the way I came, why would I stay here and wait for you guys?" Duan Yu swept him a glance. "You punk, you're so noisy. Why don't you tell me what good idea you have?" "Me?" Ming Yasi stiffened his neck and was about to speak. The three of them suddenly discovered that the entire layer of ice was shaking slightly from shock. Crown Prince Rong's expression changed slightly. It seems to be a wave of energy coming from above. Duan Yu retreated a few steps with Miss Qiao in his arms. The sapling naturally moved its countless branches and slid along with Duan Yu. Seeing this, Ming Yasi hurriedly asked, "Where do you want to take her?" "Put it down." Although he didn't know what the little lady was up to make her look so bizarre, reason told him that he could ask about this kind of thing later. Right now, he should snatch the little lady from Duan Yu's hands first. Opportunity knocks, but once. When will such a good opportunity come again? When Duan Yu saw NEAs pouncing over and reaching out to grab Arbor, who was in his arms, Duan Yu spun around to evade his fingers. He brandished a chilling ice blade and bellowed, "What are you up to now?" At this moment, the trembling of the ice layer seemed to be increasing in intensity. As long as one wasn't deaf, they should be able to hear what was going on above. "Someone is chipping away at the ice." Crown Prince Rong frowned and pointed upwards. "Right above us." Boom! Bang! Bang! The dragon claw slammed down more than a dozen times in a row. The glaciers in this area all made cracking sounds under this huge force. Mo Lien apathetically stared at the sapling squatting on the dragon's head. "You're not mistaken?" Chapter 24:08. "Master is down there. Master is down there." Qiu shouted. "I can feel it." What kind of relationship did he have with Master? It would be strange if he couldn't feel her aura at such a close distance. Mo Lien knew Little Tree's abilities and nodded without any doubt. She followed Seventh Yan's lead and stabbed the Raven Moon's sword into the broken ice on the ground. Divine power surged in his hands that held the sword. The thick layer of ice under his feet trembled and roared as he poured his divine power into it. Pump! The entire layer of ice shattered into pieces. "Who are you? Quick, protect His Highness." The Sanzhou guards heard the news and rushed over. When they saw Mo Lien and Seventh Yan's actions, they were flustered. What were they doing? They were actually chiseling the ice here. Didn't they know that the entire glacier would continue to sink and crack? Wouldn't it be easy for the people below to get hurt as well? There was a golden dragon coiled beside the man in front of them. This dragon looked like it was only in disguise and didn't reveal its true size. However, the aura of a sacred beast was still present. Crown Prince Mo examined the royal guard's attire and asked with a frown, "Sangzhou guards? Why were the Sangzhou guards here?" This was the Ice Sky Snow region, a cold place. Normal people wouldn't come here at all. Thus, the Sangzhou guards had only set up 3 spots for them to guard. It was impossible for a group of people to suddenly appear here. Could it be that the Sangzhou Emperor came a hunt? Oh no. Master seems to be leaving us. Master is running away. Little Tree suddenly shouted and pointed to the front left. "It's third. My third is up to no good." Little Tree was so anxious that it stomped its feet. If third ran away, how could it take back its seed fragments? If it didn't take them back, how could it advance and grow? Mo Yin grabbed Little Tree and threw it on her shoulder. Then she called Seventh Yan to fly over. After a whooshing sound, Yin Chi's long dragon tail broke half of the ice layer with a crack. The Tsang province guards all cried out in alarm, leaping up to avoid the layer of ice that had suddenly sunk in. At the same time, Duan Yu and vassal Prince Rong jumped out from a cracked ice cave. Duan Yu's expression froze, and he quickly turned around to chase after a certain place. Earlier, when the ice cave was shaking, that lump of tree used its vines to drag the unconscious little white ferret in his arms away. It was so fast that Duan Yu was unable to react in time. He didn't know what the hell it was, but a tree came out to mess things up. It actually wanted to carry the little girl and run away alone. He didn't know where it got its guts from. The next person to emerge from the ice cave was naturally Ming Yas. Looking up to survey his surroundings, Ming Yasi also chased after Duan Yu without another word. "Is it your seed fragment?" Prince Imo asked coldly. At this moment, he had already seen clearly what the huge lump in front of him was. Don't be fooled by the fact that it looked like a tangled mess. In fact, it was a tree made up of countless vines. Chocho nodded guiltily. Although its seed fragment may have only developed a bit of intelligence, it doesn't affect its desire to get close to little Master at all. "Make it stop," Imo Yin said after a long silence. Chapter 2409. Although Prince Mo's tone was very calm, Chocho could detect a hint of murderous intent in his nonchalant tone. It was as if he couldn't stop little three in front, Crown Prince the Great would very likely charge up and directly cripple little three. So scary. The little tree ant reflexively reached out to touch its branches. In an instant, it sent out countless vines that scattered straight ahead. Whoosh! Duan Yu's figure caught up and paused in midair, startled. Imo Lien? Why did this fellow suddenly appear here? Duan Yu was a bit curious, but he had already landed beside Imo Lien. When Imo Lien saw him chasing over, her eyes were also a bit curious. "Why are you here?" Could it be that he really accompanied the great emperor of Tsangzhou to the heavenly ice snow region to hunt? "Have you seen my wife?" Prince Imo didn't wait for Duan Yu's reply and hastily asked again. Duan Yu's expression was a bit odd as he sized him up. Then he nodded and pointed ahead. "Prince Imo, Prince Imo, when you see Jojo later, you'll definitely be in for a huge surprise." Duan Yu harumphed, and with a slight stomp, he had already flown several meters away. Soon, the two of them paused. Chocho exerted force and used strands of glistening emerald vines to latch onto a certain tree that was madly sprinting across the icy plain. "Little three, stop fooling around. Where's our little master?" The little treant jumped down from Imo Lien's shoulder and shot into the air with a whoosh. It wobbled and somersaulted a few times before landing on that tree that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. A snow-white little ferret was currently lying quietly inside a clump of vines. The little trent's face instantly darkened, and it raised its paw to point at the little ferret. "Master? Master!" He pounced over and used his two thin and weak branches to push the little Master Silver's fleshy body. He repeatedly cried out, "Master Silver, my poor Master Silver, what's wrong with you? Wake up quickly. Don't tell me you were tricked by this little ferret." Imo Lien and Duan Yu, who had followed along, looked at each other in bewilderment before turning to look at that well-composed tree. "Stop shaking her!" Duan Yu couldn't resist shouting. She accidentally swallowed the crystal core of the Great Void Treasure Crystal just now. It will probably take a while before she wakes up. If it wasn't for this messy tree that suddenly snatched Jojo and ran away, perhaps Jojo would have already woken up by now. It's all this weird tree's fault. It's so noisy. My poor Master Silver. The sapling wailed and slapped away Duan Yu's outstretched hand with its vines. "No one is allowed to touch my family's little master. Master, wake up. Chocho is here. Who exactly bullied you?" On the vast, icy plain, the sapling shouts reverberated back and forth between the empty layers of ice. "That's enough." Imo Lien speechlessly twitched her mouth. She picked up that wailing little treant and tossed it to the side. Her gaze naturally landed on that little ferret. Her heart skipped a beat. "Duan Yu, are you pleasantly surprised? Are you surprised?" Meanwhile, Mo Lien stared fixedly at that little snowball, a captivating inky light flowing in her phoenix eyes. "Jojo, it was Jojo. He didn't care no matter what kind of oddity his little miss turned into. As long as he could see her, his heart would feel more at ease. Chapter 24:10. Bam! Ming Yasi's head was smacked away by the dragon tail, and he instantly flew out. Seventh Yen roared and circled in a circle. He raised his dragon claw and symbolically waved it at Ming Yasi a few times. Such a big commotion only attracted Duan Yu and Mo Lian's glances before they promptly looked away. Duan Yu, at least you're smart enough to send someone to stop that punk. That fellow nearly annoyed me to death the entire way. Mo Lian cast a sidelong glance at Duan Yu as she reached out to hug that small figure. Unexpectedly, the little fellow moved her small head and suddenly opened her eyes. A pair of black, beady eyes warily looked ahead. When she clearly saw the two people standing in front of her, Arbor almost couldn't believe her eyes. What did she see when she opened her eyes? Why was hubby here? Could it be that she was dreaming? This string of questions made the little fellow dizzy. She reached out her small paw, wishing for nothing more than to pinch herself to see if she was dreaming. But she soon discovered that her small body was being picked up by someone, and a pair of gentle hands embraced her furry body. Arbor looked up and saw that pair of phoenix eyes silently looking at her with a grin. The little fellow cheered in delight and delight. She rolled around and crowned Prince Mo's arms and reflexively hugged his neck with her small hands. However, when she reached out, she discovered that her pitifully short paws couldn't wrap around the man's neck at all. Instead, she directly pounced on the crown prince's face and hung there comically that regardless of whether the crown prince was mentally breaking down, he still pulled Miss Qiao off his face with a deadpan expression. Seeing that she was in low spirits, her pair of small eyes gazed at him resentfully. The crown prince had to stifle his laughter as he gently comforted her. "It's fine, Jojo. You'll come out very soon. Don't be scared. Hubby will definitely help you come out of this body." Miss Qiao immediately turned her head and aimed her small but at his face, looking like she didn't want to acknowledge him. What was going on? She was fine just a moment ago and looked very happy to see him. Why was his but facing her in less than 3 seconds? Prince Mo turned to look at Duan Yu in confusion. The latter was speechless. What's with that expression? His eyes were filled with resentment for failing to meet expectations. What a joke. "Little dumpling, come here." Duan Yu patted Miss Qiao with an expression that said, "Quickly come into my arms." Sir Jojo wagged his tail and glanced at him. He suddenly tossed Prince Mo aside and naturally didn't jump into Duan Yu's arms. Instead, he directly jumped off the glacier and trotted towards the front of the ice field. Mo Lian, "Wife, don't run. With your short legs, it'll take a lot of effort to run. Let your husband carry you over." Duan Yu. She was caught off guard by a bowl of dog food. She felt like killing someone. What should she do? The little girl ran ahead, not even turning her head back. She also ignored the two of them. Mo Lian was baffled. The little fellow was clearly very happy to see him just now. "Duan Yu, what's going on?" Duan Yu looked at him like he was looking at an idiot. "Prince Mo, you're the idiot. Come back, what's going on?" Duan Yu rolled his eyes at him irritably. "Where's your wife here?" "Isn't that Jojo?" "There's no Jojo." "Idiot. Try calling her Jojo and see if she responds to you." Mo Lian. Chapter 24:11. So that's why. Mo Lian instantly understood. Jojo was shy. Right. With Sir Jojo's personality, there was no way he would admit that he was trapped inside a little ferret's body and couldn't get out. Mo Lian felt like he had discovered the truth. He quickly leaped up and asked Duan Yu, "What did you call her just now?" Duan Yu silently lowered his eyes. "Little furball." Mo Lian hastily complied and called out, "Little dumpling." "Little furball, wait." He leaped up and bent down to pick up the little girl who was running all over the ground. He said with a grin, "Little furball." "Pa, you're the little furball." Miss Qiao expressionlessly glanced at him. "Little furball, be good. Let's get to know each other. I am Mo Lian. This is our first time meeting, but I will take good care of you in the future. Don't worry." The crown prince pinched her little hands and feet and thought, compared to his soft baby, this really paled in comparison. Arbor. It felt like he was giving himself away. Duan Yu couldn't resist covering his face. He used to think that this Prince Mo was quite wise and far-sighted. He didn't expect him to be a retard. Let's return to Flat Mountain Town first, Duan Yu said with a taut face. Flat Mountain Town was the closest large town outside of the heavenly ice and snow region. The Empress and the rest were frightened, so they would probably rest in Flat Mountain Town for a day or two before setting off for the capital. Prince Mo still felt tired. His wife was clearly right next to him, but he still had to pretend to not know her. It couldn't be helped. He had to take care of his wife's emotions. The little white ferret was expressionless, but its beady black eyes kept darting around. It would take at least 4 hours to travel from the heavenly ice and snow region to Flat Mountain Town. In addition, the storm had raged for more than half a day. Not only did the rain not stop, but it even showed signs of intensifying. It was very difficult to travel, so it would take even longer. Fortunately, the lightning and thunder had stopped. In order to leave this place earlier, Mo Yin summoned Little Seven and left with Duan Yu and Rongqing. After being pestered by Yin Shihu for a while, Ming Yas had no choice but to summon the Python Bull with a furious expression. He then rushed to Flat Mountain Town as well. Along the way, Ming Yasi was naturally in a bad mood. By the time they reached Flat Mountain Town, it was already late at night. They had been tossing and turning since early in the morning until now, causing everyone to be thrown off their feet and exhausted. Yas and the others naturally caused quite a commotion when they rushed back. As for noble consort Duan, she actually hadn't closed her eyes this entire time. It wasn't until she heard the news of Duan Yu's return that she anxiously came out to see her son and tugged at Duan Yu for a long chat. There was only one large inn in Flat Mountain Town. With the Emperor's power, it was impossible for him to stay in that inn. Officials had already booked the residence of the wealthiest family in Flat Mountain Town to settle down the Emperor and his concubines. The Nether Province guards also did the same. However, the best residence had already been requisitioned by the Emperor of Tsangzhou and his entourage, so they had no choice but to find another large residence and make do with it for now. Hence, Prince Mo, who was all alone, decided to bring his little miss to the inn to make do for the night. When he turned around and saw Duan Yu's hesitant expression, Prince Mo tightly hugged the little white ferret protectively. "What are you doing?" Duan Yu rolled his eyes at him. "Stop fooling around and come back with me." Chapter 24:12. Mo Yin raised her eyebrows slightly and glanced at Duan Yu, but she didn't reject his good intentions. After all, the inn's door should have been closed long ago in this ghastly dark weather. Under the servant's lead, the three people walked into the depths of the courtyard one after another. Duan Yu and Rong didn't mention Prince Mo's identity, so the crown prince naturally wouldn't mention it himself. The servants only thought that he was a friend of Prince Chun or Rong. The servants carried lanterns and umbrellas in front of them before they reached the door of a wing room. Then, he heard the door of another room creak open. A woman in plain white clothes stepped out from inside and called out, "Big Brother Ali." Seeing Commandery Princess Xiangchang pouncing over, Duan Yu dodged to the side without even looking up. He turned to roar at the servant. "How did you arrange the rooms?" There were many people in the Emperor's party for the winter hunt, so this temporary residence wasn't as spacious as the temporary imperial residence. With so many people, it wasn't easy to arrange the courtyards. However, Duan Yu wasn't stupid enough to believe that the steward who arranged the courtyards would be so audacious as to assign him to the same courtyard as Xiangchang and do such an unreliable thing. Were they blind? Didn't they know that men and women were different? The servant who was leading the way almost dropped the lantern in his hand. He hurriedly cried out in panic, "Commandery Princess? Commandery Princess, aren't you staying in the left side courtyard?" Of course, the steward wasn't so stupid as to arrange Prince Chun, Rong, and the other men to the same wing room as Xiangchang unless he was really out of his mind. Duan Yu's face darkened. He was already mentally exhausted after a day of torment, and his mood was definitely not good right now. His words were no longer as calm and indifferent as before, and he immediately retorted, "Are you all idiots? Hurry and get her out of here." Scram far away and don't let me see her again. Xiangchang Commandery Princess looked like she was about to cry as she pitifully gazed at Duan Yu. Brother Ali, I'm so worried about you that I can't sleep. Duan Yu had long lost all tolerance for this woman, so he merely looked at the servants impatiently. Why aren't you throwing her out? Do you want me to do it myself? The servants did not dare to hesitate. A few of them hurried forward and asked Princess Xiangchang to leave with a wry smile. Commandery Princess Xiangchang was infuriated. She snapped, "Who dares to touch me?" Relying on the power of her father, Marquis Anqing, and the title of Xiangchang Commandery Princess, she really intimidated people for a while. The group of servants only felt that both sides were not human, and cold sweat was about to drip down their foreheads. Unexpectedly, as soon as Xiangchang Commandery Princess finished speaking, she found herself flying in the air. She was directly swept out of the door with a palm strike. "Ah!" Commandery Princess Xiangchang's cry broke the silence of the night. Duan Yu coldly said, "If she keeps making a fuss, I'll gag her mouth." Xiangchang's screams finally ended. After watching vassal Prince Rong enter the side room, Duan Yu dismissed the accompanying servants and followed Mo Lian into a side room. After tossing and turning for so long, Miss Chao's ferret body was already exhausted and had already fallen asleep. Mo Lian turned a glance at Duan Yu before setting up a defensive boundary inside the room with a wave of her hand. "Come with me." Duan Yu raised his brows. In the next instant, the scenery before him changed, and he was instantly dragged into a peach forest by a tree vine. "This is Master!" The little tree ant wailed as it rushed over while brandishing its two branches. Chapter 24:13. Duan Yu took a closer look. Was it the deformed tree that attacked them in the heavenly snow domain, following behind the little tree ant? This is the holy wood. Mo Yin glanced at the fellow who was wailing to the heavens and pouncing on the little white ferret and reflexively rubbed her head. This is Qiao Qiao's spiritual domain's paradise planet. Mo Yin beckoned at him. Duan Yu looked around in surprise before following Mo Lien to a peach tree. His gaze naturally landed on Jojo, who was lying under the tree. At this time, the little white ferret's body had also undergone a transformation. Jojo's soul left the little white ferret's body on its own again. Her eyes were half closed as she floated in the air to continue cultivating her spiritual conscious. After consuming the core of the great void crystal, her spiritual conscious broke through several realms at once. Unfortunately, she was still a distance away from the God realm. Hence, every time the little white ferret fell asleep, Jojo's soul would wander out on its own to cultivate her spiritual conscious. Duan Yu glanced at the little fellow's sleeping appearance, and his complicated gaze roved over her body. Now that the body is here, why doesn't the soul return? Duan Yu couldn't resist asking. When he looked up, he saw Mo Lien frowning, seemingly also considering this question. The little treant quickly interjected, "I know this." The two people's gazes landed on her at the same time. The little treant felt a great pressure, so she waved her branches and hastily explained. That's because the setting of that soul-departing talisman should be from Master to advance her spiritual conscious to the God realm. Only then can she complete the soul-departing cultivation process. In other words, Jojo could only end this so-called training if she advanced her spiritual conscious to the God realm. The two men looked at each other in bewilderment. She made the soul-departing talisman herself? Duan Yu silently twitched his mouth. He kept feeling that there should be a rather hilarious story behind this soul-departing talisman. The little treant nodded solemnly before saying, "But I advise you not to mention this in front of her." The two men, "Master will never admit it." The little treant jumped up, waved its two branches, and paced back and forth in front of them. "Let me put it this way. In this state, Master will definitely not acknowledge the two of you. Don't do anything stupid. If you slap my master's face, my master will definitely ignore you for a year and a half." The two of them were speechless. "You don't need to tell us. We already know." The little treant turned to look at them with a serious expression, its small black eyes shining brightly on the tree trunk. Let me give you some advice. Master was about to wake up. Just pretend that you don't know her later. Just ignore her. The two of them were speechless. They looked at each other and felt that the Tran in front of them was a little unreliable. The little emperor is such a particular person. If you ignore her, how can you end up well? Then tell us, roughly when will Jojo be able to break through to the God realm? It couldn't be that it would take 3 to 5 years, right? When Yin thought of having to hug a ferret and call her wife for 3 to 5 years, she felt especially miserable and her lips started twitching. The little Trant waved its branches and said carelessly, "Don't worry about this. Chocho will calculate with his fingers. I'm going home late today, so there are 3 more days until I'm late." Chapter 24:14. 2 days at the soonest, 5 days at the latest. Master will definitely be able to break through to the divine, conscious realm. Really? Of course. Don't tell me you absorbed the great void crystal's crystal core for nothing. The little Trant harumphed and haughtily raised its small tree head. That's for sure. My master is such a strong person. Don't tell me she needs 3 to 5 years to absorb that bit of crystal core. Don't worry. She'll be done in 7 days at the latest. You just said 5 days at the latest. Duan Yu reminded exasperatedly. Chocho glared fiercely at him. So long-winded. The two men, don't think we can treat you as Jojo just because you pretend to be a Jojo. Your incoherent words don't change the fact that you're a mentally retarded tree. Didn't you say Jojo was about to wake up? The little Trant threw him in, "Are you dumb? Look," and then said, "When did I say Master was about to wake up? Wait here." After saying that, he waddled over to the little white mink's side and squeezed aside the little water child and little earth child squatting next to her. "What are you two doing? Why are you squatting here and looking at Master instead of doing something proper? Chocho, why did Master turn into a mink? Chocho, when exactly can Master return to her original body? Soon. 10 days at the latest." The little Trant said seriously. Yin slammed Chocho's tree head and roared at him. One moment it's 5 days, the next it's 7 days, the next it's 10 days. I'm telling you, 5 days at the latest. If Jojo doesn't recover in 5 days, I'll throw you. Swish. Chocho thought of something and quickly picked up the little white mink's body and ran towards Fish Orchid Planet. Come with me. Let Master go to Fish Orchid Planet to cultivate spiritual conscious. It can shorten the time. Sure enough, he ran off the moment he picked up the little white mink. On the other side, Jojo's soul, who was originally cultivating in midair, fluttered away with the little white mink. Yin had long known how unreliable the tiny Trant was. However, this was the first time Duan Yu was aware of this guy's personality. He approached Yin and asked, "Is that deformed tree behind us related to that sacred wood?" "You mean that tree?" Yin glanced at the broken tree that had been following his little girl all along and said mildly, "It's a fragment of Chocho's seed. Strictly speaking, it should be a part of Chocho's body. However, only when Jojo returns to his main body can he absorb this seed fragment into his body and merge it with Chocho." Duan Yu nodded. "In that case, that tree actually attacked us in the Ice Heaven Snow region because it wanted to get close to Jojo. He even fought over the Jojo. No wonder that strange tree kept competing with him and insisted on stealing the Jojo and running away." Duan Yu strolled around Fish Orchid Planet with Yin and marveled at this little lass. Only then did he leave with Yin. After the exhaustion from last night's journey, Her Majesty the Empress and several royal concubines had fallen ill. Hence, the Emperor ordered them to continue staying in Flat Mountain Town for a few more days until the Sangzhou Empress's health improved a bit before returning to the capital. One day later, Arbor woke up and expressionlessly looked at the 3 little ones squatting in front of her. The water child was the first to reach out a chubby, translucent arm that resembled a lotus root and pounced over, calling out "Moss." Chapter 24:15. Slap. A slap landed on the head of the little water baby without holding back. Chio glared at him fiercely. Idiot! Call her Lord Little Dumpling. The water child glanced at Arbor aggrievedly and poked Arbor's furry front paw. Lord Little Dumpling. I am Little Dumpling. Do you want to eat something? Miss Chow had already discovered that she was on Fish Orchid Planet. With a glance, he saw her body lying on a rock not far away. Her stomach was covered with a small blanket. Her sleeping appearance was very serene, and her cheeks were very rosy and glossy. She didn't look like someone who had been unconscious for more than 10 days and still looked very energetic. Miss Chow hurriedly ran to his side and wagged her little tail, running back and forth around his body. Anxious, extremely anxious. Logically speaking, this soul-departing curse had been in effect for so many days, so why hadn't it worn off yet? Now that she saw her body but couldn't enter, Lord Jojo felt a bit dejected. He was not happy. She raised her paw and felt even more unhappy when she saw her current appearance. Chow, Little Dumpling. When Yin received the sapling's message, he naturally ran to Fish Orchid Planet to visit his wife. At the same time, he also couldn't shake off Duanyu. Miss Chow expressionlessly looked at her dear husband as he picked her up and carefully examined her from head to toe. Your body condition is quite good. Little Dumpling, do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? You're the Little Dumpling. Upon hearing this strange name, Arbor speechlessly turned his head away. Lord Little Dumpling is quite well right now. The sapling deliberately raised its voice and said, At this rate, you'll recover your original appearance in less than 3 days. Miss Chow's ears secretly perked up as she listened to Chio's words. The Great Void Crystal's crystal core is almost depleted. When it accumulates to a certain level, it'll definitely form a sea of rivers and smoothly enter the God Realm Divine Consciousness stage. At that time, you'll definitely see a different conscious. So that was it. Miss Chow wagged her tail. Chio continued loudly. We can't be too hasty even if we want to return to the main body. Everything has to happen naturally. Xiao Mu did not fully understand. Chio's meaning was that she was probably only one step away from returning to her main body right now. However, when she looked inside herself, she had long discovered that her spiritual sense had already entered the 15th level. She was really only a little bit away from the divine sense state. However, it was this small distance that caused her to be trapped in the small ferret's broken body. Arbor frowned. He knew that this matter could not be rushed. For some people, even after 3 to 5 years of training their spiritual senses, they only managed to raise their spiritual senses by a small level. There were many such ordinary people in the world. It was well known that anyone who wanted to raise their spiritual sense by 1 level would often have to pay countless medicinal pills and painstaking efforts. For example, Arbor, a little level 8 soul master, had a level 15 soul sense. This was definitely out of the ordinary. Yin chuckled as he reached out to touch her little ears. What do you want to eat, Little Dumpling? Arbor looked up at him and could not help but roll around in his arms, swallowing a wolf's howl. Chapter 24:16. What should she do? She really wanted to hug hubby, but this poor body. Miss Chow helplessly lowered her head to look at her small, furry body. So tiring, especially since these two people had clearly seen through her identity. Duanyu was even more hilarious. He held out several boxes of detoxification pills and had her identify which ones were most suitable for noble Consort Duan. She couldn't get enough of that punk, so when she recalled the faint scent she smelled on noble Consort Duan's body, she used her small claws to pick out several types of detoxification pills for noble Consort Duan to take. The person who poisoned her was very low level. She reckoned that she would recover greatly after taking them for a few days and wouldn't suffer from any lingering illnesses in the future. Little Furball, do you want to take a look at a talisman shop? Yin, who was strolling around Pingshan Town with the little fellow in her arms, stopped at the entrance of a very small talisman shop. The little fellow wanted to nod in high spirits, but when she saw her small claws, she lay down listlessly. She couldn't do anything with this appearance. It's fine, let's go in and play. Prince Mo walked into the talisman shop. Just as he stepped into the talisman shop, he came face to face with two young women. The person walking in front was dressed in a gorgeous maroon dress. Her chin was slightly raised, and she looked very domineering. The one following behind her was naturally her little maidservant. She followed step by step with a fawning expression and an exquisite box in her hand. She reckoned that the box contained some talisman papers. Rong Shanshan's eyes naturally brightened the moment she saw Mo Lien. However, when she thought of her identity, she still maintained her composure. She pretended to adjust her pace, and her originally swift steps slowed down considerably. When she brushed past the man, she even deliberately glanced at him from the corner of her eye. In the end, there was nothing. He didn't even look her in the eye. Oh, not to mention in the eye, he didn't even glance at her from the corner of his eye. Rong Shanshan watched as the corners of his lips curled up slightly. His brows were picturesque as he lowered his head. His gaze was as soft as water as he brushed past her. Rong Shanshan felt an inexplicable itch in her heart, as if a soft goose feather had brushed past her. She couldn't help it. The man in front of her was too good-looking. Even if he didn't do anything and just stood in front of others, he was still so handsome that people couldn't help but look at him. Noticing the change in Rong Shanshan, the maidservant hurriedly took a few steps forward. "Princess, should we stop him?" "No need." Rong Shanshan raised her chin proudly. "Find someone to check his identity later." Rong Shanshan left with her maidservant, but Mo Lien was completely unaware of this episode. He strolled around the talisman shop with the little fellow in his arms and bought some items that caught his eye, giving them all to his wife in one fell swoop. Unfortunately, his wife was not in a good mood and kept looking at him with resentment. Prince Mo reached out to stroke her little head with a grin. "Good girl. I'll take you to eat something delicious." The man and ferret left the talisman shop. Prince Mo carried his wifey to the entrance of a specialty noodle shop in Flat Mountain Town and walked inside. Duan Yu, who was sitting by the window, looked up and rolled his eyes at him. "What are you dawdling for? You took so long to come. I heard that the noodles here are the best within a radius of 800 kilometers. Duan Yu poured some vinegar into the small dish in front of Mo Lien and extended his hand to Prince Mo. "I'll feed her." Catch up on yesterday's chapter. Chapter 2417. Bah, how could he leave the matter of feeding his wife to someone else? Mo Lien irritably rolled her eyes at him and placed the little fellow on the table. "No need. You know how to feed her? I'm telling you. She might be a ferret, but she's very particular about her meals. Mo Lien, you have to serve her before and after the meal, understand?" Duan Yu took advantage of Prince Mo's daze to irritably carry the little fellow in front of him and call out, "Waiter, bring a basin of clear water." Although the waiter didn't know what this lord wanted to do, he still carried a basin of clear water over according to the customer's request. Duan Yu ordered that person to drag over another stool and place the basin on the stool. Then he picked up the round little fellow and placed her paws down. As he rubbed them, he gently said, "Wash your hands and feet. Wash them clean. Don't make a fuss and don't splash the water out." And Mo Lien, the royal guard standing next to his master like a pole, silently twitched his mouth. Right now, he practically didn't need to turn around and know that everyone in the main hall was looking at his master like he was an idiot, yet this action was especially smooth and adept when performed by his handsome and otherworldly master. His movements were as smooth as flowing water and very eye-catching. Needless to say, all the young ladies and young wives at the tables by the window were staring straight at him. Mo Lien promptly walked over, hastily scrambling to carry his wife. What a joke! How could he let Duan Yu do something as simple as washing her feet? Although this wasn't his wife's body, her core was. Intolerable. "I'll do it myself." Mo Lien snatched over the little fellow who had just washed her two paws and irritably rolled her eyes at Duan Yu. Who doesn't know how to do such a simple thing? Arbor expressionlessly watched as Duan Yu carried her over and Mo Lien snatched her back. Her beady eyes looked at the two with slight disdain. The two of them must have thought that Jojo Sama's dazed look was amusing, and were trying to snatch her away like a little doll. Her body wasn't in a good condition now. Once she recovered, the two of them would be in for a good show. If the two of them knew what Jojo was thinking, they would definitely cry. This little ancestor, even if they had the guts as big as the sky, they would never treat her as a toy. That Emolien sat up straight and felt that his wife was about to explode. He quickly comforted her and said, "Sweetheart, don't be angry. After we wash our hands and feet, I'll give you something delicious to eat." Duanyu glanced at Emolien and harumphed. He then turned around to order the waiter hiding on the side, "Give me 3 bowls of scrambled egg noodles. 2 more plates of dumplings. Hurry up." She was in a bad mood. She felt that he was just sitting here looking for trouble. He was deliberately looking for excitement. Why did he feel uncomfortable when he saw Emolien? This noodle restaurant had been operating in Pingshan Town for who knew how long. It was a well-known and long-established noodle restaurant. The waiters were all very diligent, and the prices weren't too expensive, so business was booming every day. Originally, everyone ate their own meals and lived in harmony every day. However, everyone's gazes kept involuntarily drifting to the 2 people and the Martin by the window today. Some people even secretly covered their mouths and snickered. It was truly because those 2 people and the Martin's actions were too strange. That Martin was probably hunted down in the heavenly ice and snow domain. It looked rather cute in a small ball. However, those actions and expressions made people not know whether to laugh or cry. Chapter 24:18. The strangest ones were the 2 men at the table by the window. Their looks were out of the ordinary, and their manners were elegant, as if they were 2 young masters from noble families. But in reality, they were actually 2 idiots with a mental illness. Everyone watched oddly as the 2 fought to finish washing little Martin's claws. The handsome young man in purple with long hair and tightly pursed lips actually took out an expensive handkerchief from his pocket and used it to wipe little Martin's claws. Emolien. She didn't expect Duanyu to be so cunning. Emolien didn't have any handkerchief to wipe with her, so that guy beat her to it. There were a total of 4 tables by the window. Besides Emolien's table, the people at the other 3 tables were all looking at them oddly. The 2 young women at one of the tables were staring at Emolien and Duanyu so hard that their eyes were about to pop out of the window. Arbor. As a Martin, she felt that her recent mission was to eat, sleep, and eat until she was full. Other than that, she could only play as she pleased. When she saw a large bowl of noodles that looked rather chewy in front of her, she eagerly leaned over the bowl and stared at the noodles and eggs soaked in the broth. Emolien quickly carried her over and picked up the chopsticks to place the noodles on a small plate on the side for her. The diners who were secretly watching them in the main hall couldn't resist rolling their eyes. Where did this Martin come from? Wasn't this behavior befitting an emperor? The little fellow squatted on the table and used a small claw to grab the cold noodles and put them into her mouth. Everyone. They had never seen a Martin that could eat noodles. Slurp. And they had never seen a Martin that could slurp noisily while eating noodles. Meanwhile, Emolien beamed at his wife, his heart brimming with pride and satisfaction. Look, his wife could attract attention even while eating noodles. She was definitely a true genius. If Duanyu knew what he was thinking, he would definitely spit on his face. This shameless guy blindly showing off. "We will leave tomorrow," Emolien said dryly. Duanyu's grip on his chopsticks tightened, and he looked up at him. "Do you need to be in such a hurry?" Emolien nodded. "I came out on my own at the last minute. By now, I reckon that my father has already been alerted." Emolien didn't continue, but Duanyu already understood. If the great emperor of the divine prefecture came all the way here and found out that his son was still in the Tsang province, it might cause some unnecessary conflict and trouble. "Okay," Duanyu replied aloofly. "I'll come find you after a while." Emolien thought of the old man's birthday, which was just around the corner, and raised her eyebrows noncommittally. Miss Chiao had already finished the small plate of noodles in front of her. At this moment, she was hugging the plate and eating her dumplings. As soon as Crown Prince Mo saw her charmingly naive appearance, he was delighted. His wife was adorable no matter what she looked like. Duan Yu glanced at that man and harumphed. He casually picked up a dumpling and handed it to Miss Chiao. Little dumpling, try my shiitake mushroom-stuffed dumpling. Miss Chiao felt that her marten body was full. However, her small claw inexplicably reached over and hugged that dumpling. This marten was a glutton. Miss Chiao thought expressionlessly. Otherwise, it was impossible for her to only want to eat when someone fed her. Forget it, eating more could also nourish this weak marten's body, even though she felt a bit stuffed right now. Chapter 24:19. The little girl hugged the dumpling and took 2 bites. Just as she was about to take a 3rd bite, she suddenly heard a familiar voice calling Brother Ali. The little fellow's furry paw that was hugging the dumpling twitched slightly. As expected, she saw Duan Yu's face darken when she looked up. Prince Mo rejoiced in Duan Yu's misfortune and looked up at the girl who rushed in from the noodle shop's entrance. He winked at Duan Yu. That girl from last night came again. Prince Mo's mood soured when he thought of how the little girl's soul actually floated to the heavens of ice and snow to find Duan Yu. Anything that could sully Duan Yu's mood right now was especially good for him. Commandery Princess Xiangchang naturally wouldn't admit that she followed Prince Chen out the entire way. In fact, she had been waiting at the restaurant across the street for a long time before Duan Yu stepped into this noodle shop. She especially found a spot where she could see Brother Ali. She had been observing him from the moment he called over that waiter to bring a basin of clear water to fawn on a mink. She truly couldn't bear it anymore, so she rushed down from the restaurant across the street to find him. Ask her why she couldn't bear it anymore. Xiangchang couldn't resist cursing. From the beginning until now, Commandery Princess Xiangchang had been watching her brother Ali attentively attending to the mink. No matter how she looked at it, she felt that Brother Ali's gaze was a bit strange. How was this looking at a mink? It was clearly as if he was looking at his little lover. When Commandery Princess Xiangchang thought of the words little lover, she shuddered in disgust and couldn't help but shudder. When she looked at the snow-white mink on the table again, her gaze was as if she was looking at a monster that could bring disaster to the country and its people. It was especially terrifying. Xiao Mu was baffled and lowered her head to look at her small paws. He didn't think that his tiny body could provoke this renowned Commandery Princess in any way. Commandery Princess Xiangchang had been treated coldly by Duan Yu several times in a row. Compared to this mink's treatment just now, it was definitely she, a dignified Commandery Princess, couldn't even compare to a mink. How could this not infuriate her? Without thinking, she reached out to grab Miss Chiao on the table. What are you doing? Duan Yu jumped in fright and quickly raised his chopsticks to block Commandery Princess Xiangchang's indiscreet hand. On the other side, Emol Yin's movements were also quick. In a flash, she picked up the little fellow who was squatting there and held her in her arms. She didn't care that her sleeves were stained with grease from her greasy claws. Arbor looked at Xiangchang Commandery Princess as if he was looking at an idiot. What's going on? Why did he hit her for no reason? Brother Ali, am I not even comparable to a mink in your heart? After being treated coldly for the past few days, Commandery Princess Xiangchang questioned Lin Mingyao the moment she opened her mouth. She could not think of anything else. It's obvious. Duan Yu's reply inexplicably pricked his heart. The group of onlookers couldn't help but sympathize with the beautiful girl in front of them. This girl was really pitiful. Of all the people she could like, she had to like a crazy person. Now, she even asked such a question in front of everyone. In the end, she was slapped in the face by the man. It was so painful. Obvious? Duan Yu's answer immediately made Commandery Princess Xiangchang's face pale. Brother Ali's meaning was that it was obvious that she was not even comparable to a mink. How? How could Brother Ali say that? Commandery Princess Xiangchang felt like her heart was about to shatter. She turned to glare at that mink with increasingly unfriendly eyes. Chapter 24:20. Miss Chiao only felt an inexplicable calamity befalling her. This strange fire had suddenly ignited on her, as though she had been possessed by neurotic fire. The girl in front of her was looking at her with an extremely unfriendly gaze, which made Miss Chow viciously glare back without restraint. Ow! She couldn't even eat peacefully, so why was she glaring at Sir Jojo? Prince Imo felt that the little fellow was very interesting, and his lips couldn't help but curve. He nodded while hugging her and saying, "Okay, okay, okay. If she makes any more noise, I'll throw her out." The little fellow hugged a dumpling, and her little black eyes darted around before she lowered her head to eat the remaining half of the dumpling. She was fine with her howl, but it shocked everyone in the hall. Everyone had never seen a ferret that howled like a wolf, so they were looking at her as if she was a pervert. Was this a mutated ferret? Or was she simply a little wolf cub, poo-poo, who couldn't differentiate between a ferret and a wolf? They weren't idiots. Waiter, bring another basin of water. Duan Yu's face darkened as he beckoned to the waiter hiding at the side. That waiter quickly carried a basin of water over. Duan Yu walked up and helped Prince Imo clean the little fellow's oily claws as if no one else was present. He then said to the two of them, "Let's go." Xiangchang Commandery Princess stood there dumbstruck as she glared at that abominable ferret, her eyes practically spitting fire. What exactly was this damn ferret's background? It actually made her brother, Ali, condescend to serve her again and again. Ow! Miss Chow also glared back at her. "You good for nothing. You're even jealous of a ferret. You'll only be like this for the rest of your life." What kind of joke was this? Was Sir Jojo the type to show weakness? If it weren't for the fact that she was so small right now, she would have slapped this person who was glaring at her out of the restaurant. While she was pondering, she saw Xiangchang Commandery Princess's figure suddenly fly out like an arrow, smashing out of the window with a boom. Ha! It smashed into the middle of the street, shocking the people in the noodle house and the pedestrians on the street. Commandery Princess Xiangchang probably never dreamed that she would really be thrown out the window by Crown Prince Imo, thrown onto the streets. The people in the noodle house, who had been waiting to watch a good show, collectively shut their big mouths when they saw the Crown Prince move as fast as lightning. What a joke. They didn't want to become the second of that woman and be thrown onto the streets like rags that were used to wipe the ground. Looking miserable, Jojo rolled around in Prince Mo's arms. Imo Yin could not help but laugh. Duan Yu silently twitched his mouth, but he still expressionlessly called out, "Let's go, let's go. What are you waiting for?" This pair of ferocious bastards was no different from before. Their arrogant temperament had never changed. When Duan Yu thought of this, he couldn't resist taking a deep look at the little girl and sighed inwardly. The two people and the ferret had just walked out of the noodle house when they heard an unfamiliar voice. "That's it. Don't waste your breath with them. Quickly snatch it for this lord." Duan Yu and Imo Yin's gazes shot across the crowd and saw a fatso with a head full of fat and intestines. He was hugging two thick and strong arms as he pointed at the little ferret in Imo Yin's arms and exclaimed excitedly, "This must be a divine beast. Quickly snatch it for this lord." More than half of the people on the street were shocked by him, including Imo Yin and Duan Yu. Miss Xiao looked at that fatso in bewilderment. Chapter 24-21. Idiot. She was just a level 3 mystic beast right now. Was this guy blind? Who was he calling a divine beast? If she was a divine beast, she wouldn't be this weak. Sir Jojo glared at that damn fatty in front of her. She had an urge to pounce on him and tear him apart. She felt that the fatty's eyes were filled with mockery when he called her divine beast. He was teasing her, right? There was actually someone in this world who dared to jump out and tease Sir Jojo. He was simply tired of living. Prince Imo silently twitched his mouth as he stroked his wifey's round body to comfort her. He understood his wifey's current feelings very well. Ha ha ha, what a huge misunderstanding this was. Sir Jojo glanced at the Crown Prince suspiciously. Strange, he felt that the Crown Prince's lips were curled up, as if he was laughing inside. Ha! He probably didn't have the guts to laugh at Sir Jojo. Duan Yu stood on the side and sent the royal guard a look. How could the Sangzhou guard's cultivation be a match for the few lousy servants that the fatty brought along? They took care of him in a few moves and gave him a good beating. Then, they twisted the fatty's arm and shoved him. Scram! The fatty's face turned green from anger, but he kept ranting. You guys want to overturn the heavens? Huh? You guys dare to hit me. Do you know who I am? There's nothing in this flat mountain town that I don't have the final say in. Emolien, that Duan Yu was amused from anger and sent the Tsangzhou guard a look. The Tsangzhou guard raised his arm and smacked that punk's mouth crooked with 2 slaps. You're just a mere overlord of flat mountain town. What are you capable of? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? A loud shout came from the crowd. They saw a round, middle-aged man leading 17 to 18 thick-armed servants over. They surrounded the Tsangzhou guard and pointed at him, shouting angrily, What are you doing? Can't you see that young master is being held in someone's hand? Hurry and save young master. Father, father, these 2 gigolos are trying to steal my divine beast. Fatty's face was swollen as he shouted angrily. Hurry up and snatch the divine beast for me. Emolien, Duan Yu. That Lord Jojo let out an angry roar. This damn fatty must be tired of living. Which pig's eye did he see that she was a divine beast? Jojo, Sama knew that this was clearly the darn fatty's way of mocking Sir Jojo. A small mystical beast that had not even reached the 3rd level was actually called a divine beast. This was clearly not blindness, this was brain blindness. Little Tuanzi, don't be angry, don't be angry. Emolien's mouth twitched. He really understood his wife's feelings at this moment. This was clearly a weak chicken, but there was a retard who said that you were very strong. His wife flew into a rage out of humiliation. He couldn't smile, and he couldn't let his wife see that he was smiling. Jojo looked up at this man suspiciously. The man's jade-like handsome face was filled with tenderness, and his eyes were smiling. There was nothing strange about him at all. Be good. I'll beat him up for you. Umph. Lord Jojo snorted through his nose. His beady black eyes stared disapprovingly at that annoying father and son pair. Very, very, very angry. Divine beast. Fatty pointed in Jojo's direction and shouted angrily. Don't just stand there and do nothing. Charge. You must snatch the divine beast safe and sound. Chapter 24-22. Divine beast my ass. She really didn't know where this moron got the idea that Sir Jojo was a divine beast. How could Jojo know that this person had actually been observing them in the main hall for a long time? From the moment the 2 of them started serving Miss Xiao to wash her claws, they had been secretly observing this mink's expressions and actions. After his very professional analysis, Fatty was certain that this mink was definitely a divine beast. Otherwise, why would those 2 pretty boys fight to serve this mink? In addition, whether it was this mink's expression or actions, it fully indicated that she wasn't an ordinary mink. She was definitely a divine beast in disguise. Don't think that he hadn't seen the world just because he was born in Ping Mountain Town. Could it be that he had never owned a divine beast or seen a divine beast egg? After his careful and professional analysis, Fatty was certain that this was definitely a newly born divine beast. She was still ignorant at the moment, but it didn't matter if she was weak. This didn't mean that she wouldn't rise up in the future. When she grew up, she would definitely be a very awesome divine beast. So right now, Fatty decided that he must bring people to snatch Sir Divine Beast. It wouldn't be a problem even if he had to expend a few more lackeys. Did these 2 pretty boys from the village really think they could challenge the tyrant of Flat Mountain Town? Sees. Fatty roared angrily. The group of servants rushed forward, but before they could make a move against the Tsangzhou guards, 2 of them were picked up by the neck like chickens and flung out heavily. Sir Jojo flew up in anger, and a small snowy mink pounced in front of Fatty with a whoosh. Its sharp little claws directly tore at Fatty's face. Ow! Fatty clutched his face and retreated a few steps. He grimaced in pain and tried to grab the little white mink. With a shift of his body, Emolien had already arrived in front of him. Without another word, he kicked the Fatty, sending him tumbling and stumbling. He then reached out to carry the little fellow, who had almost been caught by the Fatty. Ow! Sir Jojo's eyes revealed a vicious glint. That was a "I'll kill you" look. Watching from the side, Duan Yu's mouth involuntarily twitched. When he saw the look in her eyes, he inexplicably thought of the fierce little girl he had met in the mountains behind Kwoto village. At that time, she was also extremely fierce. She could even viciously lay her hands on his peerlessly beautiful face. Not to mention the fact that he was looking at a fatso with mediocre looks. It would be good enough if he didn't slap him to death. Xiao Xiao would never admit that she was angry out of humiliation. Yes, she was annoyed beyond words. He felt that this damn fatty in front of him was definitely mocking him for being a weakling. This damn fatty, he had nothing better to do. What right did he have to sarcastically call her a divine beast? So what if she was weak? What's in his way? Spit on his divine beast. I'll whip you to death. Lord Jojo had completely misunderstood Fatty's thoughts. If the fatty knew why she slapped him, he would definitely cry. How is this sarcasm? He thought that this ferret was a divine beast. There was something wrong with Lord Jojo's brain. He was never on the same page as other people. Mo Yin suppressed her laughter and pacified her raging wifey. She rubbed her round little body and gently said, "Be good, don't make a fuss. Look at how you scratched him. How can you scratch his nostrils? It's not good, it's so dirty. Come, come, I'll take you to wash your claws." Chapter 24-23. For 113, you're blocking my way. The fat father and son's wails quickly attracted dozens of Sangzhou guards. When they saw Prince Qin's cold and handsome face, they turned to look at the fat father and son. Without another word, they rushed up to beat the fat father and son without waiting for the prince's order. Then, they chased away the surrounding crowd. "Fourth Imperial Brother, what are you doing?" A sweet female voice came from behind the group of Sangzhou guards. Duan Yu turned around and saw Heir Rong and two women walking over. Vassal Prince Rong didn't have much of an expression on his face, but the two women next to him discreetly sized up Mo Lian. Rong Shanshan was a bit startled. She didn't expect that the young man she met in the talisman shop this morning was actually familiar with her fourth brother. Rong Shanshan was still wearing that maroon dress, and her features were delicately drawn. When she looked at people as she walked, her chin was slightly tilted up, clearly showing a bone-deep pride. The woman next to her, Rong Yuhu, was about the same age as Rong Shanshan. Her smile was much sweeter, and even her voice was sweet, looking delicate and soft. To be honest, Duan Yu wasn't very familiar with these two women. That old man, the great emperor of Sangzhou, had a long line of children. How could he remember all of them, whether he knew them or not? He only vaguely remembered that these two women should be the 7th and 9th princesses, but he really didn't remember their names. Duan Yu frowned when he heard Rong Yuhu call him 4th Imperial Brother. This voice was so annoying that it irritated him. Princess Jiankong. The limping Xiangchang commandery princess walked up and curtsied to Rong Shanshan before turning to look at Rong Yuhu. 9th princess. Compared to Rong Yuhu, Rong Shanshan, the empress's daughter, had always been much more favored. Moreover, she was a princess with a title. Although both of them were princesses, Rong Shanshan naturally had the highest status among the princesses. Rong Yuhu nodded with a smile. Rong Shanshan, on the other hand, had an arrogant look on her face. She glanced at her and asked curiously, "What's wrong with you?" Xiangchang usually looked like a smart person. She didn't expect that when she saw her today, she would be so listless and limping. She was in such a sorry state, but she still had the nerve to come up and greet her. She didn't have the manners of princess at all. Rong Shanshan scoffed in her mind. Her gaze seemed to inadvertently sweep past Mo Lian's face as she asked Duan Yu aloofly, "4th Imperial Brother, may I know who this is?" Duan Yu simply couldn't be bothered with her. Without even looking at her, he directly said to Mo Lian, "Let's go." After being fooled by that foolish father and son pair for a period of time, it was really bad luck. Rong Shanshan's face instantly darkened. She was the daughter of the empress and the younger sister of the crown prince, Rong Li. Who dared to disrespect her in the palace? This unorthodox son that was brought back by imperial father actually dared to not put her in his eyes. Rong Shanshan abruptly turned her head and motioned for several royal guards under her to block Rong Li's path. Fourth imperial brother, what do you mean by this? Do you think you can't hear me when I'm talking to you? She was used to being arrogant, so how could she endure this kind of vexation? She coldly glared at Duanyu. Duanyu snorted and ordered the Sangzhou guard behind him. Move them aside. Don't you see there's a blind dog blocking my path? This tone and attitude angered Princess Jiankong so much that her entire body trembled. Chapter 24-24. The Sangzhou guards silently looked at each other, but they didn't dare to court disaster. They hastily stepped forward and respectfully bowed with cupped hands, asking Princess Jiankong to step back. Slap! Rong Shanshan's fury soared as she slapped at the Sangzhou guard's face. 5 bright red fingerprints instantly appeared on that punk's dark face. He also took a step back and lowered his head with tightly pursed lips, looking like he was angry but didn't dare to voice it out. Slap! Duanyu didn't say anything and slapped back. He coldly reprimanded. You're quite capable. You dare to hit this prince's people? Everyone was stupefied by his ruffian attitude of ruthlessly destroying a flower. Meanwhile, the fatty and his son, as well as the group of servants, who were originally tied up outside, were all trembling in fear. They wished for nothing more than to bury themselves like fertilizer. What was going on? Judging from their titles, there were princes, princesses, and commandery princesses. When did so many awesome people come to Flat Mountain Town? Aside from the fat man and his son, everyone else on the streets of Flat Mountain Town had been cleared out. Those who had set up stalls far away had also fled upon hearing the news. They all fled back home to find their mothers. What a joke. Who freaking dared to stay and watch a show between those princes and young masters? Rong Shanshan was stunned on the spot. She clutched her burning left cheek with one hand and pointed at Duanyu with the other. She screeched in a tearful voice, Rong Li, you dare to hit me? Slap! Duanyu didn't say anything and slapped her again. This slap was even heavier than the previous one, causing Princess Jiankong to stumble back several steps. A trace of blood even trickled down the corner of her mouth. That's right, I'm hitting you, idiot. So what if this prince hits you? If you're not happy, come fight back. Hit me back if you dare. What's the point of just standing there and blabbering nonsense? Don't be too obvious. You can do it yourself. This prince will just stand here and wait for you to hit me back. Come fight me if you dare. I'm waiting for you. All the Sangzhou guards. Emolian. The little girl was very unhappy to watch the show, and her gloomy anger from earlier was swept away. Her pair of black eyes looked at Duanyu, then at Princess Jiankong, who was being bullied ruthlessly. Both sides of the princess's face were swollen out of proportion. The little guy clapped his little paws with a curious look on his face. He didn't mind the commotion at all. He liked this kind of style, even if he was aggrieved. Could it be that he didn't retaliate? He liked to fight back to his face. Princess Jiankong, this mink is mocking you. Just as the atmosphere became tense, Xiangchang Commandery Princess screamed in a hoarse voice. Rong Shanshan immediately shifted her gaze to Jiao. As expected, she saw the gloating expression on the little fellow's furry face. Actually, this mink did not have any expression at all. She was a mink, so how could she have any expression? Her usual anger was not shown on her face, but completely filled with a pair of small black eyes. Princess Jiankong was completely imagining some schadenfreude and using this as a pretext to make a fuss. Kill it! Kill this mink for me! Kong Yuan shouted, pointing at the snow-white little mink in Mo Lian's arms. Upon receiving Princess Jiankong's order, 2 black-clothed hidden guards scuttled out from behind Mo Lian like 2 shadows and reached for the white mink. Chapter 24-25. These people, did they all think that Sir Jojo was a pushover? They couldn't beat Duanyu, so they actually dared to come and beat up Sir Jojo. They were courting death. Seeing the little fellow flashing her tiny claws and wanting to pounce over to seek her own death, Imogen hastily restrained her impulsive darling. Who could the little fellow beat with her current physique? Don't be ridiculous, Crown Prince Emo raised his leg and kicked one of the hidden guards away. Then he turned around and flicked his sleeve, causing the other guard to fly out as well. With two bangs, he was flung to God knows where without any resistance. Princess Jiankong was completely stupefied. She was well aware of the cultivation levels of the two hidden guards beside her, but she didn't expect that they wouldn't even last a single move from this young man before being sent flying. Without another word, Duan Yu kicked Rong Shanshan's stomach heavily. Princess Jiankong was like a drifting little white flower as she was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. She crashed on the ground with a thud and didn't make a sound. When Xiao Mu saw these two men swiftly take care of a group of people, her exploding ball of fur finally relaxed a bit. Woof! The little fellow barked at Prince Emo. Prince Emo nodded, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Okay, we'll go back now. Woof, woof. The little fellow wagged her tail and urged them to hurry. Her pair of small, black eyes emitted clusters of light. She suddenly felt that her soul wanted to leave this minx body after messing around just now. Therefore, she had to hurry back, find an empty room, and enter Paradise Planet. Emo Yin was used to reading his wife's mood. Seeing the little fellow's urging, he quickly called Duan Yu and ran back to the residence without bothering with those women. After returning to the room, Emo Yin instantly understood when she saw Jojo biting her sleeve. She had the sapling drag the little fellow into Paradise Planet. Once they entered, Arbor's soul involuntarily slipped out of Diao's body. She actually didn't know what was going on. In fact, she had been training her soul body and spiritual sense every time she slept. At this time, the accumulated water had already formed a river. As for the crystal core he had absorbed earlier, it had been completely absorbed and melted by his knowledge sea, transforming into nutrients that nourished his knowledge sea and fusing with it. She subconsciously opened her inner vision and looked into the depths of her conscious. She saw that all the water droplets in her originally droplet-shaped conscious had now evaporated into a kind of hazy white mist, completely enveloping her conscious. Even the golden talisman jade tome, which was originally lying in the center of his consciousness, was now surrounded by a thick layer of fog. His conscious went from a solidified state to a liquefied state, and now it was in a vaporized state. Arbor's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that had his spiritual sense vaporized and transformed into divine sense? Thump, 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 thump. She could almost hear her little heart beating madly in her chest, clamoring and pounding intensely. Wow, it's rising, rising, rising. Her spiritual sense had grown to divine sense. Compared to her cultivation, her conscious had entered the god realm first. The sudden advancement made the little fellow so happy that she couldn't tell north from south. Right? Chocho previously said that as long as her conscious entered the god realm, her current awkward state would be resolved. Then now she was going back. Miss Chow lifted her heavy eyelids. Chapter 24-26. Her long eyelashes fluttered heavily. She slowly opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was a pair of pitch-black phoenix eyes filled with anticipation. The moment their eyes met, Miss Chow felt an inexplicable sense of guilt. She could only feel her little heart beating wildly. It's over, it's over, it's over, it's so awkward. How am I going to tell this guy later? Wifey. Mo Lien reached out and pulled her completely into his embrace. He lowered his head and sucked on her delicate lips forcefully, nibbling and nibbling. He used quite a lot of strength. Arbor. She suddenly forgot what she wanted to say to him. What should she do? This kiss was different from the previous ones that were as light as dragonflies skimming the surface of the water. It was truly ferocious. Perhaps it was because the crown prince had accumulated so many days of worry, anxiety, and irritation. But at this moment, all of it was stuffed into the little fellow's little mouth. Miss Chow wanted to resist, but how could she be a match for the man? Her raised little hand was caught in his grasp. Only when the man had kissed enough and let go of her did the little fellow seem to have been reborn. She heaved a sigh of relief, but her little face was already flushed red from holding it in. Emollient, Jojo, when you kiss, you can exhale a little. Look at how you've held it in. My heart aches just looking at you. The man reached out and pulled her onto his lap. His other hand touched her chest, rubbing it as he breathed for her. Still can't hold it in? You. Prince Emo looked at her with an aggrieved expression. He did not mention anything about Diawer. You're scowling at me. Is it because we didn't kiss enough just now? Why don't we practice a little more and let you learn how to breathe? Arbor, what was going on? He felt that the crown prince seemed a little different somewhere. Arbor looked at him expressionlessly. After a while, he said, Why am I here? Didn't the two of us just arrive at a small town in the corner of China on a big ship? Why did we come to Paradise Planet? Emollient suddenly felt speechless. This little calm face was really good at pretending. If he didn't already know what was going on, he would have been deceived by her calm expression. You don't know? Emollient blinked. Jojo, let me tell you, it's dangerous. When we first came to the Divine Land, we encountered a huge storm. We were blown to Tsang Province's heaven of ice and snow by a terrifying gust of wind, and even encountered Duanyu. Arbor, what a coincidence, I tell you. In the end, we even saved Duanyu and found a fragment of a tree. Jojo, do you remember now? Was it because of that strange wind that his memories were still a little messy? Let me tell you, it's okay. You'll be back to normal in 2 days. Does your head still hurt? Do you want your husband to give you a massage? When Duanyu was pulled inside by Sapling, he heard Prince Mo's awkward boasting, and he was so embarrassed that he almost couldn't find his way home. Crown Prince, forget it. Even my face hurts on your behalf for making up such a lie to take care of Jojo's feelings. Can you be so irresponsible as to make up such an unrealistic story? Duanyu walked over with a disdainful expression. Arbor was still expressionless. Duanyu, we just saved you. Your wound hasn't completely healed, so don't walk around. Go back and lie down. Duanyu, Emollient. Jojo so quickly entered the plot that Emollient made up for him. How could Duanyu endure this? Emollient chuckled. Wrong. Jojo even added some details to his fabricated plot. For example, Duanyu was injured. Chapter 24-27. Duanyu speechlessly glanced at Jojo. What should he do? He was actually speechless, Arbor dawdled as he got up and patted his clothes. When he turned around, he saw the little water child, the little Trant, and little Soil squatting in a row on the ground and looking at him pitifully. The 3 pairs of watery eyes were brimming with a desire for a master hug. Arbor, when did these 3 start squatting there? Didn't that mean? Just now when Emollient was kissing her, she had completely seen all. The little fellow immediately felt unwell. He only felt 2 red clouds quickly flash across his little face. He stood up straight in an instant. Holding his 2 little paws behind his back, he expressionlessly turned around and ran towards the 100-herb garden. Emollient, his wife, was shy. Later, he would just go and comfort her times, it would be fine. When the little water child saw that its master had run away, how could it continue squatting? It hastily waved a pair of translucent little hands and trotted after its little master. Master, don't run, master. Upon seeing this, the little Trant and little Soil also hastily chased after them, followed by that cluster of tree fragments whose original appearance could not be discerned. Emollient speechlessly shook her head when she saw those little ones running after Jojo like a swarm of bees. She turned to Duanyu and said, Since Jojo has recovered, I plan to bring her back to the Divine Province in a bit. After being delayed for more than half a month, it was almost the end of February. The Emperor of the Divine Province was probably dizzy from waiting for the Crown Prince to return to the capital. But this was nothing, just let him wait. His wife was the most important person in the world. Emollient's handsome face was taut. Thinking of the Emperor in the capital, she inexplicably felt very, very vexed this old man, who knew what kind of trouble he would stir up after returning. After restraining her irritation, Imol Yin patted Duan Yu's shoulder. Do you need help with anything here? After this guy returned at Sangzhou, a lot of things happened around him. Just by looking at the collected information, Imol Yin knew that this guy's life was very troublesome. Duan Yu shook his head. Not at the moment. If you have something to say, just say it. Don't keep it to yourself. Imol Yin glanced at him, then slowly walked towards Jojo's herb garden. Duan Yu stood alone under a tree covered in peach blossoms, and his gaze flickered as he watched them leave. The peach blossom petals that filled the tree fluttered to the ground. Some landed on his hair, some landed on his outer robe, and they danced around him like fairies. In fact, he had recognized this place the first time he had come here. Wasn't that the peach blossom garden that he had been escorted into with the little girl in the mountains behind Kwoto village? Later on, the paradise was refined by the little girl. It turned out that the little girl had turned it into a spirit domain for her own use. Phew! As expected, she was a little girl with great fortune. A faint and gentle smile faintly slid past his lips. In the blink of an eye, the little girl had taken care of the paradise really well. Just like her, she was like a stamen, slowly blooming towards the light and futured. Even if he didn't do anything, even if he couldn't obtain anything, he would feel extremely happy just by looking. There were too many things that a person wanted to grasp in their life, but not everything would go according to their wishes. This was already very good. Chapter 24-28. Your Highness Prince Chun, please. His Majesty and Her Majesty the Empress have been waiting for a long time. The old eunuch who came out to report said with trepidation. Then he hastily stepped aside and invited Duan Yu in with his plump body drenched in cold sweat. Duan Yu narrowed his cold eyes and walked into the main hall of the temporary residence. He immediately saw Rong Yuan sitting on the main seat, and below him sat the dignified and virtuous Empress Lu, who had a cold expression. Princess Jiankong was kneeling by her mother's feet. Her eyes were red from crying, and her cheeks looked much less swollen after applying medicine. Meanwhile, Rong Yuhu stood solemnly in the main hall with his head bowed. Beside him stood Heir Rong, who had an indifferent and somewhat disapproving expression. His Highness the Crown Prince requests an audience. Second Prince and Third Prince request an audience. Commandery Princess Xiangchong requests an audience. The Emperor frowned and looked up at his son, who was slowly walking in, with obvious displeasure on his face. Why are you all here to join in the fun? I won't see you. Your Majesty, Li and the others must be worried about their seventh sister's injury, the Empress said indifferently with a hint of embarrassment on her face. Her own charming daughter was slapped twice by that foreign bastard without any explanation. Her face was still swollen even now, and it was extremely amusing when she walked out. His Majesty actually wanted to protect this bastard and suppress the matter, unwilling to make a fuss. How could she let him have his way? The Emperor of Sangzhou held his breath and glared at the Empress angrily. He said gravely, "Let them in." The idiot third prince started making a fuss as soon as he walked into the hall. I heard seventh sister was wronged. What exactly happened? Greetings to royal father and royal mother. This son greets royal father and royal mother. Crown Prince Rong Li and second prince, who followed behind him, were not as loud as third prince. They stepped forward and bowed respectfully before speaking. Seventh sister, why is your face so swollen? Her Majesty the Empress angrily placed the teacup on the table and said coldly, "Go invite noble consort Duan over. There's no need to invite my mother. She's already so old, yet she's calling for her father and mother just because something happened. Is she still breastfeeding or what?" Duan Yu bluntly interrupted the Empress's words and ignored her ugly face that was distorted from anger. He coldly stated, "I was the one who did it. Yes, I did. For the sake of Imperial Father, I went easy on him." The great emperor was so angry that he couldn't say anything for a long time. Empress Lu slapped the table angrily and said sternly, "Rong Li, aren't you being too presumptuous? So what if I'm impudent? Don't try to act like an empress in front of me. If you have the time to be angry here, why don't you take care of your own daughter and everything will be fine?" Duan Yu's words nearly choked the Empress to death. Her face contorted as she pointed at him and stammered, You. She was so angry that her chest hurt, but she couldn't speak. She truly had never seen such an unscrupulous youth. She was the current Empress of Tsangzhou, the motherly model of the world. This punk actually dared to contradict the Empress like this. It was evident that he didn't care about her, the Empress, at all. To put it more seriously, he didn't care about His Majesty at all. Duan Yu's cold and desolate gaze circled Empress Lu's body as he said dryly, Jiankong relies on your Majesty as the Empress, but her actions outside are worse than a shrew's. This is all because of the good daughter you taught. Chapter 24-29. You. Let. Go. The Empress was so livid that her chest was about to explode. Her chest heaved up and down as she panted, and her contorted face was filled with fury and viciousness. She forcefully slapped the table, chopping off a piece of wood from a corner of the tea table. Her entire body trembled uncontrollably from her fury. You, Ronly, you. You're really audacious to the extent that you don't choose your words carefully. Was it noble consort Duan who taught you? Ha! Duan Yu coldly gazed at the woman before him. He took out a palm-sized medicine pouch from his sleeve and ruthlessly tossed it to the ground. Why do I need anyone to teach me? Your ugly example of a motherly model is enough for this prince to learn from. The corners of the Tsangzhou Emperor's mouth fiercely twitched twice. He really wanted to ask noble consort Duan, was this child really not carried away wrongly? Who exactly did she inherit this fiery temper from? Crown Prince Li was stupefied. Similarly, the second prince, the three sovereigns, and even Princess Jiankong, who had been sobbing softly while stroking her face, were also shocked. They truly didn't expect that Duan Yu, this punk, would still continue to rebuke the Empress in front of his official mother. Moreover, he rebuked her so fiercely and with such conviction that he even rebuked the Empress until she was like a bear. Bring her in, Duan Yu angrily shouted. The Emperor was already stupefied by this son of his. He truly didn't expect that the Empress, who had originally come to denounce his son for beating his sister, would turn out like this. It had to be said that his son's ability to control the situation was truly extraordinary. At this time, from the Empress to the servants, everyone was stupefied. They simply didn't know that this Prince Chun actually had a backup plan. The hidden guard dragged a woman whose head and face were covered in blood from outside the residence. That old woman's legs had clearly been broken. She was dragged across the ground like a rag, leaving behind 2 long trails of blood, which looked very frightening. The Empress was so furious that her entire body was trembling uncontrollably. Her eyes were practically shooting out substantial murderous intent and fury. Ronly, she screamed hysterically. Even the great emperor beside her was shocked by her scream. Senior servantly, Rong Yuhu, who was standing below, had already followed Crown Prince Rong to the side of the main hall. Seeing the old woman thrown in the middle of the hall, her face was filled with shock and fear. She subconsciously raised her head to look at the Empress. Was it that the old man who served the Empress? Your Majesty, are you just going to watch this unfilial son humiliate his official mother and slap his official mother's face like this? Empress Lu started sobbing, her eyes brimming with resentment as she glared unwaveringly at Duan Yu. Only then did the great emperor speak, his face filled with anger as he said, Fourth brother, what are you doing? Duan Yu glanced at the emperor in ridicule. Can't royal father tell? I found the real culprit who poisoned imperial concubine mother. I'm looking for them to settle the score. The great emperor's eyelids trembled. His face was still calm, but the corners of his eyes were clearly twitching. Hasn't royal father already executed the beauty Wang who poisoned your imperial concubine mother? How long has it been? Why are you still bringing it up? Duan Yu coldly glanced at the emperor. Royal father, do you think I'm an idiot? The great emperor. This old woman has already confessed. Chapter 24:30. The Empress slammed the table fiercely. Wrongly, do you think you could deceive the heavens and the sea and deceive His Majesty just because you made a confession under torture and created an illusion of reality? Duan, you ruthlessly kicked that old woman's back and coldly uttered, "Speak." Yes, Her Majesty the Empress was the one who provided that poison pill to Beauty Wong. Yes, Her Majesty the Empress was the mastermind. Before Nanny Lee could finish speaking, she was suddenly struck by the Empress's palm and rolled on the ground. She lay there on the verge of death, practically motionless. Your Majesty, what else do you have to say? You want to frame this consort based on an old woman's one-sided story? Wrongly, how dare you? A cold glint flitted across Duan Yu's eyes. With a flip of his hand, a bewitching and glaring silvery white flame emerged from his fingertip. The entire hall was shocked. Crown Prince Wrongly glared at his fourth brother as if he was looking at a monster. He clearly remembered that this man controlled the 9th level of the water spirit. Then this inexplicable silvery white flame that was so glaring. Could it be? Devil? The Devil Emperor's fire. The Devil Emperor's fire. The Emperor stood up from his seat in shock as he looked at his son in shock. The Devil Emperor's fire that had disappeared for thousands of years reappeared in his son's hands. Therefore, after his son received the Devil Emperor's inheritance in the ancestral temple, he awakened the Devil Emperor's fire? Crown Prince Wrongly looked at Duan Yu with a complicated expression. He couldn't tell if he was more jealous or fearful. Meanwhile, the Empress's expression also became exceptionally contorted, and she couldn't stop trembling with fear. How was this possible? How could noble consort Duan's son inherit the Devil Emperor's fire? This was impossible. Not only was her son Wrongly born sickly, but his talent and cultivation were also not high. But unexpectedly, Wrongly, that bastard, not only inherited the Devil Emperor's inheritance, but he also awakened the Devil Emperor's fire long ago. Only now did he reveal it in front of people. His scheming mind was really deep. He really did a good job of hiding it. I can kill you with a thought. Do I need to frame you? Idiot. Duan Yu directly rebutted Empress Liu without giving her any face. What kind of world do you think this Sangzhou continent you live in is? Do you know what it means to respect the strong? In my eyes, you're just an ant. Boom. Empress Liu sat down on the high seat. Her lips trembled, but she couldn't say a word. Royal Father, this son requests that this woman be severely punished. Duan Yu bluntly declared as he pointed at Empress Liu. No, you have no evidence at all. Wrongly hurriedly stepped forward and said, based on Nanny Lee's one-sided statement, you can't prove that it was Imperial Mother who poisoned noble consort Duan Yu. If this prince says it's her, then it's her. Duan Yu coldly interrupted the crown prince. At this moment, Wrongly felt that the ferocious claws and fangs hidden in the dark had finally been exposed in front of everyone. He had finally revealed his ambitions and desires, putting all of this clearly in front of them. Crown Prince Wrongly's complexion instantly turned pale and unsightly, and he felt his breathing tighten. He didn't expect that a single Wrongly would bring him so much pressure. Chapter 2431. The Emperor's mouth twitched, and he stood up to say, "That's enough. Stop making a fuss." Royal Father, how are we the ones making a fuss? Jiankong finally couldn't hold it in anymore and started bawling indignantly. Royal Father, we were clearly talking about Fourth Royal Brother beating me up earlier, but Fourth Royal Brother skillfully brushed this matter aside and started making a fuss about something else. Royal Father had already made a conclusion about Beauty Wong poisoning, but Fourth Royal Brother abused his power to bully others and insisted on pushing this bucket of shit onto Royal Mother. Royal Father, please uphold justice for daughter and Royal Mother. Royal Father, daughter isn't a shrew making a scene on the streets like Fourth Royal Brother said. Daughter is a royal princess. So how could daughter be so shameless? Royal Father, I beg Royal Father to uphold justice for daughter. As she spoke, she sobbed as if she wanted to cry tears of blood. The emperor felt a headache coming on. He suddenly felt a bit of regret. Why did he meddle in this lousy matter today? At that time, besides ninth sister, heir Rong and commandery Princess Xianchong were also present. If royal father doesn't believe me, you can ask those two. Heir Rong stepped forward and cupped his hands at the emperor. He said frankly, previously, it was indeed Princess Jiankong who made a scene on the streets of Flat Mountain Town. If it weren't for that, His Highness Prince Chun wouldn't have intervened and taught the princess a small lesson. Princess Jiankong. The emperor, that Duan Yu coldly looked at the emperor of Sangzhou. Royal father, I originally wanted to let this matter go. But since royal sister brought it up herself and heir Rong testified, this son earnestly requests royal father to teach royal sister a lesson so that she won't act like a shrew all day long. Not only will she disgrace the Sangzhou royal family, but she will also disgrace this son. Who are you calling shrew? Empress Lu shrieked. Duan Yu looked at Empress Lu mockingly. So it's the daughter who insults her mother. Her Majesty the Empress is no different from that shrew on the streets right now. Fourth brother, Rong Li couldn't resist reprimanding. You had better know when to stop. Eldest brother, did I say something wrong? Duan Yu turned to look coldly at Empress Lu. The latter's nails dug into his palms, but he did not realize it. The muscles on his face were also twitching. It was obvious that his lungs were about to explode from anger. Fourth brother, Imperial Mother is your legitimate mother after all. You're criticizing her like this today, do you know? Enough. The great emperor angrily slapped the armrest of the rosewood chair. All of you shut up. Princess Jiankong sobbed. Since today's matter was caused by Jiankong, let Jiankong bear the responsibility. The great emperor waved his hand irritably and said, since Jiankong's appearance is improper and you're causing trouble on the streets, then I'll punish you by making you copy the precept for women 300 times. When you return to the palace, you'll be grounded for 3 months. Father Emperor, Princess Jiankong raised her eyes in astonishment, staring blankly at the father who had always doted on her. She was the victim, all right? Why was she still the one being punished in the end? 500 times. The great emperor bellowed. Empress Lu's face was full of anger. She subconsciously kicked her daughter lightly to make her shut up. Princess Jiankong was full of grievances. She covered her mouth and wept. Turning her head, she actually ran out of the courtyard. Duan Yu scoffed. Royal father, you also saw that Jiankong dared to disregard his father and brothers like this in front of you. This punishment is completely useless to her. 300-500 times was merely a number. It couldn't punish Jiankong at all. Chapter 2432. Princess Jiankong could ask someone to copy it for her. Of course, she could procrastinate and copy a few articles and then let it go. What he wanted was for Jiankong to be in big trouble. Since she dared to give the order to kill Jojo, she should have a taste of death first. Only when Jiankong was in trouble would Empress Lu feel the pain. As for Mammy Li's matter, the Empress could insist that Mammy Li slandered her by accusing her master. Thinking about it, his good father would not depose the Empress for such a trivial matter. At most, it would just be a thorn in his heart. If he wanted to get rid of the Empress, he had to get rid of the Lu family behind her first. Of course, this matter could not be rushed. But now it was good to let the dog Empress feel the pain in her heart. The great emperor looked at his son in front of him with a heavy gaze. His fourth son was already more outstanding than the others. This point was obvious to all in the court. However, Rong Li was his legitimate son and Empress Lu's son. As long as Rong Li was not too ill to move, no one could shake his position as the crown prince. What else do you want? It's not what I want. It's my father. If you don't punish Jiankong today, her domineering and unruly arrogance will be known all over the world in the future. She dares to disrespect me today, and she dares to disrespect my father in the future. Such a royal princess will only disgrace the royal family when she goes out. I am ashamed to agree with such a royal sister. The Empress's eyes were full of anger. This was a blatant threat. He meant that if Jiankong was not punished today, he would completely ruin Jiankong's reputation. This Rong Li had really underestimated him. Today's appearance of baring his fangs and brandishing his claws was his original appearance. The emperor pinched his eyebrows and waved his hand. Jiankong made a scene in the street and lost all her virtue. Now she is demoted to Commandery Princess Jiankong. She will be beaten 10 times as a warning to others. Let the disciplinarian Mammy teach her etiquette again. Your Majesty. Empress Lu looked like she had fainted. She stared at the emperor's cold face with her eyes wide open. And you, Empress? Granny Li, who was by your side, had such a thing happen to her, and your daughter has become like this. You should also be grounded for 7 days and reflect on yourself. Duan Yu coldly glanced at Empress Lu before cupping his hands at the Zhangzhou emperor. This son will take his leave. When he turned around and stepped out of the door, a silver flame, like the fire from heaven, suddenly fell on Mammy Li at the door. In Mammy Li's shrill scream, everyone was stunned as they watched the old woman being burned to ashes by the silver-white flame. Empress Lu felt a chill run down her spine. The Zhangzhou emperor was also stunned for a long time. When he came back to his senses, he shook his head helplessly. This is the consequence of bullying my mother. Although Duan Xiaoxi did not say anything when he left this sentence for everyone. Rong Qing returned to her room and found that her father was already waiting for her. Weren't you a little impulsive today? The Prince of Qing's chubby face was rather worried. You have thoroughly offended the Crown Prince, Empress Lu, and the Lu family. Vassal Prince Rong said with a faint smile. I think the ones who need to worry are Empress Lu and the Lu family. Father, do you think this matter will end like this? You are all underestimating the fourth prince too much. Chapter 2433. Prince Qing stared at his son in a daze. He had no doubts about his son's brilliance. But he was young after all, and Prince Qing was used to smoothing things over. He felt that his son's actions today were showing off and targeting Empress Lu's family too much. But what did his son mean by his words just now? Could it be that the fourth prince's matter wasn't over yet? The princess had already been demoted to a commandery princess and was punished with flogging and confinement. How could this matter not be over yet? Even if it wasn't over yet, it should be the Lu family targeting the fourth prince and not the other way around. It wasn't that he was underestimating the fourth prince, but the fourth prince had just returned to Song province and was weak alone. How could he resist an established family clan? Let's wait and see, father. Rong smiled faintly. After returning to his room from the main hall, Duan Yu was still in a foul mood. After his torment today, Empress Lu, that woman, was most likely going to feign illness and have to stay in Flat Mountain Town for a while longer. As he picked up his teacup, he noticed a small head bobbing at the door out of the corner of his eye. He couldn't help but chuckle on the inside, and his expression eased as he softly said, Stop looking around. I already saw you. Come in. Miss Chow's long hair was loosely tied up today. She didn't have any extra gold or silver hairpins in her hair and only wore a somewhat comical Jasper frog headdress. When she was bobbing her head at the door earlier, that little frog headdress was especially conspicuous. Perhaps that dunce crown prince personally made it for her to play with, but the little fellow ended up wearing it on her head, Duan Yu thought. Miss Chow pursed her lips. When she looked at Duan Yu, her gaze was a bit erratic, and her voice was inexplicably a bit hesitant. It was mainly because she recalled that night when Duan Yu, this dunce, held her painting in admiration and said those words to her. The little fellow felt a bit uncomfortable in her heart. Now that she looked at him, she increasingly didn't know what to say. A bit of awkwardness inexplicably floated in the air. Duan Yu abruptly stood up and strode to her. He raised his hand and flicked her forehead. What are you doing? You came in without saying anything. With this rude flick, the little lady's gaze turned fierce as she stared dangerously at the man in front of her. Duan Yu, this treasure always liked to suddenly change her expression. It was a bit frightening. Cough. My bad. He chuckled and raised his hand to rub the little fellow's head in a very natural manner. Tell me, are we setting off? Miss Chow nodded. Suddenly, she took out a box from her inner world and stuffed it into his hand. For me, Duan Yu looked at her with a grin and reached out to open the box. It was filled with all kinds of antidote pills and antidotes. All kinds of small bottles were covered with instructions describing the symptoms of each poison and what kind of medicine to take. It was obvious that a lot of effort had been put into this. Duanyu was touched, but he didn't show it on his face. He merely smiled at her and said, "Don't worry, my combat strength isn't that weak. I definitely won't let anyone kill me first." The little girl pursed her lips. "Jojo." Duanyu reached out to hold her small hand. Miss Chiao inexplicably thought of his expression that night. As if she had been stung, she hurriedly flung his hand away. Duanyu's outstretched hand stiffened for a moment, and it froze in midair. Seeing her exceptionally serious expression, Duanyu couldn't help but chuckle bitterly. "What's with that look in your eyes? Why are you looking at me so strangely?" he asked softly. Chapter 2434. His fingers also very rudely pinched her soft cheeks. "If you don't speak, I'll make wild guesses." Arbor hastily threw his hand away and took a step back to look at him. He said very seriously, "That night, you already knew I was inside the little white ferret's body, right?" "What? You were inside the little white ferret's body before? That ferret that I carried back to the tent? Really, Jojo? Really?" "Arbor, that Duanyu. Your acting is especially realistic. It's like you're learning about this for the first time." Right now, Sir Jojo didn't know whether to laugh or be angry. Mo Lien and Duanyu were quite cooperative with her willfulness. Cough. Miss Chiao suddenly didn't want to continue bickering with him. She shouted expressionlessly, "What ferret? I don't even understand what you're saying." Duanyu. That why did she change her attitude faster than flipping a book? Didn't he just admit that he had stayed inside the ferret's body for a while? This little stoic was truly hilarious. He had just admitted that he was the ferret, and now he was slapping his own face twice. If it weren't for the fact that his mood was a bit gloomy right now, Duanyu really wanted to laugh out loud. "Jojo, you couldn't have taken my joking words with the ferret seriously, right?" Duanyu stepped forward and simply spoke bluntly. He grabbed her small hand and shook it while he was at it. His eyes curved like a silver moon as he looked at her and said, "How can I like you when you're so fierce? Whoever likes a fierce girl like you is out of luck. Probably only Mo Lien, that idiotic fool, would be so thoughtless. Arbor, try belittling me again." The little stoic raised her fist, looking like she would beat him up at the slightest disagreement. Puffed, Duanyu laughed out loud, and his beautiful peach blossom eyes blinked at her. Okay. I won't say it. I won't say it anymore." Miss Chiao glanced at him suspiciously, feeling that this guy was a bit strange. Were these words from his heart? But forget it. Since he said so, the little fellow also felt relieved in his heart. More than anyone else, she didn't want to hurt this idiot in the slightest. Jojo were friends, right? If it was in the past, the little girl would have yelled at him, "No friends." But today, the stoic face clearly wasn't that resistant. She probably felt that it couldn't be better that he was willing to take a step back to the position of friend. Everything had returned to the past, and nothing had changed. Only Duanyu was very clear. Did nothing really change? Impossible. He smiled and let go of her hand. He took out a storage talisman and handed it to her. "The Snow Domain's divine flowers are all inside. Do you want to keep 2 for yourself?" Duanyu nearly laughed out loud. "So stingy, only giving me 2 flowers?" Actually, she was already very generous. That time under the ice, when she saw Yas take one, she wanted to bite off a piece of his flesh. 5. The little fellow endured the pain and said, Here you go. Duanyu waved his hand. "I have no use for these anyway. Why don't you give them to me after you concoct some good pills?" "Oh." Miss Chiao smoothly put the storage talisman into her pocket and said with a nod, "Duanyu, we'll be leaving now. Be careful, if you're alone." "Okay." Duanyu nodded. His gaze landed on the little girl's slim figure as she turned around and strode out the door against the light. He inexplicably had the urge to reach out and grab her. However, he didn't. Chapter 2435. Jojo left. Although he didn't deliberately inquire about this information that day, he still followed them without realizing it. He calmly watched those two leave Flat Mountain Town before summoning the Golden Dragon and leaving together. Duan Yu felt that Jojo's departure seemed to have taken his heart along with it. It made him feel empty, as if something was missing. It was a bit lonely and unbearable. Duan Yu propped up his chin with one hand and spaced out for a while until a hidden guard quietly entered the room and stood beside him. He finally recovered his wits and asked calmly, "Is everything done?" "Yes." "Withdraw." Duan Yu poured himself a cup of tea and calmly took a sip while holding the teacup in his other hand. Close to 10 o'clock at night, ear-piercing screams came from Princess Jiankong's small courtyard. She had lost all her dignity after being flogged 10 times in public. Jiankong had never suffered such humiliation before. She was currently sprawled on the bed in a fit of rage. The two maidservants who were applying the medicine were both sent out by the furious Empress to flog them 30 times. The new maidservant who was called in to apply the medicine was trembling with fear and trepidation. As soon as the medicine was applied, Jiankong let out a mournful scream. It was very embarrassing for a girl to be injured in that sort of place. Princess Jiankong was embarrassed, vexed, and angry, and her wound was also painful, itchy, and numb. The screams and shrieks of chickens and cats made Empress Lu's heartache. Her precious daughter, whom she had doted on so much, had actually suffered 10 strokes of the cane while she was still alive. Her injuries were so severe. In the Empress's fury, she dragged the maidservant who applied the medicine out to flog her again. The rest of the people were all frightened out of their wits. It seemed like anyone who applied medicine for the princess would be beaten. Royal Mother, it hurts, Royal Mother, Imperial Mother. Rong Shanshan only felt that her, but was no longer her. But Empress Lu couldn't help but feel suspicious about this situation. Although her daughter's cultivation wasn't high, she was currently a level 8 mystic cultivator. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any problem with her getting flogged 10 times. So how could it hurt like this? But her injury was in that sort of place, and it wasn't convenient for the royal physician to examine it nearby. This truly put Empress Lu in a difficult position. At this moment, her personal palace maid, Mi Heng, stepped forward and bowed. "Your Highness, do you still remember that medicine woman, Qing? Why don't we let her take a look at the princess' injuries?" Empress Lu frowned. The medicine woman, Qing, was originally serving the great emperor after entering the palace. Because she had a good grasp of medicine, she had been helping the imperial physicians to nurse the great emperor's body. Over time, the great emperor seemed to have taken a liking to her. But who was Empress Lu? How could she let a vixen step on her head? Empress Lu's actions were much faster than the great emperor's. Seeing that the great emperor was about to issue an edict to confer the title, she took the first step and brought this little medicine girl to her side. Then, she threw her into her palace of Renchuan, where she was left to dry for almost half a year. If it wasn't for Head Palace Maid Mi Heng's reminder today, she wouldn't have remembered this person. Empress Lu said with a cold face. "Then let her come over and take a look." Mi Heng nodded. Naturally, there was no need for the Empress's head palace maid to personally look for a mere medicine woman. She could just send someone to look for her. By the time the medicine woman, Qing, finished examining Jiankong, it was already less than an hour later. Empress Lu's face was cold. Seeing that she wanted to say something but was hesitating, she couldn't help but angrily reprimand. "If you have something to say, just say it." Chapter 2436. Medicine, which Qing lowered her eyes. She didn't look like a woman with a very outstanding appearance, but she was young and her skin was very fair. She looked delicate and pretty, like a trickling stream, giving off a quiet and leisurely feeling. Empress Lu's gaze turned sharp. "Hurry and speak." Qing bowed to Empress Lu with her head lowered, then said, "Your Majesty the Empress, the princess's wound is a bit strange. Someone poisoned it. No matter what medicine is applied, the pain will be amplified by 20 times. This is why the princess has been feeling so much pain." But this kind of poison only makes people feel pain and will automatically dissipate after 3 days. Speaking of which, this poison wasn't that frightening. This made her feel very strange. Such a poison could not cause any substantial harm to people at all. What? Empress Lu was furious and shot up from the bed. Then what are you still standing there for? Hurry and concoct an antidote to dispel the princess's poison. Reporting to Your Majesty the Empress, this humble subject has no antidote for this kind of nerve-stimulating poison. I can only use some temporary methods to alleviate the princess's pain. To put it bluntly, this kind of nerve-based poison only wanted to make people suffer as much as possible. There wasn't much harm in other aspects. Empress Lu's expression changed drastically, and she gnashed her teeth. It must be Rong Li. It must be that punk who did it. I won't let him off. Won't let him off. A malicious and cold glint surfaced in Empress Lu's eyes. Empress Lu turned around and glared at Medicine, which Ching. Hurry and help alleviate the princess's pain. Yes, Your Majesty the Empress. On the other side, Duan Yu received news that the Empress had caught a cold and was feeling unwell. The Emperor ordered her to stay in Flat Mountain Town for 2 more days. He couldn't help but sneer at this news. Jinkong's body wasn't suitable for long journeys, but if Empress Lu thought that Jinkong would recover in 2 days, then she was truly too naive. The wind whistled past. The afternoon sky was clear, and there were only a few wisps of white clouds drifting in the sky. This was the northernmost part of Tsang Province, so there were few people here. Little 7th Yin flew freely, so not many people could see them. Therefore, he was overjoyed. Xiao Mu was sitting in Crown Prince Mo's arms while holding a map provided by the Zhangzhou Guard. She pointed at a place and said, "If we go from here, we'll probably have to fly for 4 to 5 days before we can return to that small town from where we first entered the Divine Province. Let's go directly to South City." Mo Yin rubbed her chin against her furry little head. "If I'm not wrong, Hu Dequan should be waiting for us there." Hu Dequan was the old man's capable eunuch. Eunuch who? Half a month ago, he left without saying goodbye and left on the back of a dragon. He must have scared everyone out of their wits. But at that time, how could he be in a mood to talk nonsense with Hu Dequan, Fong Su, and the others? His heart was no longer in Southern City. When Arbor thought of the soul leaving Talisman, he couldn't help but frown. The first thing he did after returning to his main body would probably be a laughingstock. It was because she had suspiciously put away all the talismans that she had tossed into her inner world after drawing them, and even sealed them in a box with a binding talisman. The little fellow felt that it was necessary to do this. Otherwise, who knew when these talismans would suddenly jump out at her and attack her without any explanation? Chapter 2437. Miss Chiao turned her little head and snuggled into his body. "You left without saying goodbye. It must have made things difficult for them." Prince Mo declined to comment. What was there to make things difficult for those people? Wasn't it just that father sent them to bring him back to the capital? They didn't seem to respect him and his wife. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been such a vexing matter with the palace maids. Mo Yin had told the little girl about that matter yesterday, including the ghost encirclement in the southern city residence. The white light that appeared in her body and the ghost spirits were shattered. He told the little fellow everything. Miss Chow expressed that it was quite thrilling. When she wasn't in this body, so many things had happened. It was really thrilling. But when he told her, the little thing's expression was obviously that of a curious person listening to the story. Wasn't this a little too careless? Mo Yin couldn't help but laugh. Lifting his hand to caress her little face, he whispered softly in her ear, "Jojo, you're not allowed to go anywhere now. You're not allowed to leave my side again. All right?" Arbor saw that his expression was still a little tired, and couldn't help but feel a little heartache. He had been running here and there in fear these days. Obediently nodding her head, the little girl raised her hand to stroke his chin. "We'll go wherever you say." Mo Yin was in a good mood, lowering his head to kiss her forehead. In the next 3 to 4 days of hurrying, they chose to travel through the mountains and rivers. They didn't meet with any danger. Everything went smoothly. On the evening of the fourth day, the two had already reached the vicinity of the southern city. They kept Little Seven, changed to a less eye-catching spirit stallion, and very quietly returned to the southern city. Prince Mo brought the little fellow to the residence that they had stayed in previously. Indeed, Hudequan was really waiting for them in that residence. Seeing the crown prince walk in with a little girl, Hudequan initially thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him. But when he saw clearly who it was, he immediately rushed forward, crying out loud, as if he had seen his own ancestor. Wasn't he seeing his ancestor? Hudequan was already badly battered by His Highness the Crown Prince. He had already decided to wait another 3 days. If there was still no sign of the Crown Prince, he would follow Fong Su back to the capital to report first. Although the Emperor of the Divine Land had been informed of the news that the Crown Prince had left alone dozens of days ago, he was still anxious and wanted to find this capricious prince. Look at His Highness. He had already arrived at the Divine Land, but who knew what was wrong with him? Without even saying a word, he directly threw away the pot and left alone on a golden dragon. This group of people was left behind with dumbfounded expressions and staring at each other. During this period of waiting, it could be said that everyone was extremely anxious and anxious. Your Highness. Hudequan wiped his tears and said, Your Highness has finally returned. You didn't see the Crown Prince Consort? Crown Prince Mo grumpily retorted. Needless to say, when Hudequan was agitated, he only saw his Crown Prince. He really didn't see clearly who the Crown Prince brought back. Hearing the Crown Prince's words, Hudequan shuddered and looked at Arbor in shock. Crown Princess? The Crown Princess had disappeared together with His Highness the Crown Prince that day. The last time he saw her, the Crown Prince flew into a rage because a few palace maids had treated the Crown Princess poorly. Unexpectedly, when they met again, the Crown Princess, who had always been bedridden, could actually run and jump. She looked very healthy. Chapter 2438. Could it be that the Crown Prince had left without saying goodbye that day, because he had brought the Crown Princess to ask for medicine? A thought flashed through Eunuch Hu's mind, but he didn't dare to dwell on it. He hurriedly knelt down and bowed respectfully to the Crown Princess. This old servant, Hudequan, greets the Crown Princess. Regardless of whether the Emperor acknowledged her as his daughter-in-law, the Crown Prince's attitude and stance showed that he was very protective of his food. If anyone dared to disrespect the Crown Princess in the slightest, beating them to death would be a light punishment. If they didn't handle it well, they might offend the Crown Prince by belittling the Crown Princess and be killed by His Highness. After all, the crimes committed by those stupid palace maids were still fresh in his mind. Hudequan was a shrewd person. Although he had some doubts, he wouldn't show them on his face. He was as polite as he could be to Miss Chiao. Seeing that his attitude was all right, Mo Yin's expression improved a little. She asked Hudequan, Where is Fong Su? Fong Su brought people to look for your Highness again. This servant will send someone to bring him back now. He's looking for me in the South City. Yes, yes. Fong Su has been looking for your Highness within 100 miles of the South City. Was there something wrong with this person's brain? Mo Yin couldn't help but twitch her mouth. He had already gone to the frozen heaven snow region, but this Fong Su had persisted for more than half a month to look for him near the South City. It would be strange if he could find him. Furthermore, he had left on Little Seven's back that day. With Little Seven's speed, he had no idea how fast Little Seven was. Mo Yin, that are all the people around the great emperor retarded? The little fellow was leaning against him. Seeing his strange expression, he couldn't help but secretly ask, Are they retarded? Mo Yin, that eunuch whose mouth twitched fiercely. Why did he have an inexplicable feeling of heartache for Fong Su? He felt that this person had been busy for more than half a month and was probably not well liked. In fact, His Highness the Crown Prince might even despise his intelligence. After half a cup of tea's time, Fong Su hurried back with a very serious expression. As soon as he entered the residence, he saw His Highness the Crown Prince sitting in the courtyard drinking tea. His serious face looked much better. When she saw the stoic-faced little girl sitting next to the Crown Prince, she couldn't help but be startled. More than half a month ago, this little girl was still quietly lying on the hospital bed, looking half dead all day long. Was he doing well now? How we get back to the capital? Do you have a proper route? Fong Su's spirit was lifted. Your Highness has been traveling and stopping like you're on a scenic tour. If you go all the way back like this, it will take at least 1 or 2 months. If this humble subject were to arrange for us to travel by water, it would only take about 7 days from Wei Shi Langfang, Fong Su said with an excited expression. Mo Lien frowned. Is there anything fun in Wei Shi Langfang? Wei Shi Langfang's scenery is not bad. The scenery along the river is beautiful. When we reach the center of the river, we can see that the river water is pink. The crown princess will definitely like the scenery there, Fong Su replied woodenly. For some reason, Fong Su inexplicably felt that as long as this crown princess agreed to take Wei Shi Langfang's waterway to Dragon Flame City, the crown prince would definitely not object. Therefore, Fong Su himself didn't know why, but he very consciously introduced the crown princess to the specialty snacks and cultural scenery of Wei Shi Langfang. Somehow, he felt that there was something wrong with his style as the commander of the forest guards. Eunuch whose mouth twitched, and he had already covered his face and hid to the side. Chapter 2439. When Sir Jojo heard Commander Fong mention the beautiful scenery along the way and the various snacks sold along the river, he couldn't help but become interested. When he heard that they could make it to the annual Steamed Bun Festival, he couldn't help but be curious. I heard that the Steamed Bun Festival has been around for a long time. Whoever can find the pill in the steamed bun will receive a generous reward. You can eat the steamed bun while eating the digestive pills you brought. If you don't have enough pills, you can ask a pill refiner to make it for you on the spot, until you find the pill in the 100,000 steamed buns and win the grand prize. Cough. Commander Fong said expressionlessly. This competition is a little stupid, but many people participate. During the Steamed Bun Festival last year, someone ate more than 800 steamed buns and died the next day. Arbor, emolien, ha ha ha. Is there a need for that, idiot? Crown Princess, you must believe me. There are really people who risk their lives to participate in this competition, because the grand prize will not only give you 50,000 spirit coins, but also many precious pills. Last year, the first-place winner received a heaven-level dragon grass. This general has heard that heaven-grade medicinal herbs are sought after by many alchemists. So the person who died last year from eating too much steamed bun, Miss Chiao's face was expressionless, and the twitching of her mouth showed that she was not calm. He was a pill refiner from the pill house. Emolien. Arbor. It was hard to imagine that someone would risk their life to participate in this steamed bun eating competition for a stalk of dragon grass. Why didn't they go to heaven? So those digestive pills, they are refined by the pill refiners themselves, but it's also possible that when they eat the steamed bun on the spot, they feel that it's not enough. In that case, they can also ask other pill refiners to refine it for them, but in this way, they may have to share the prize with others. Then let's go to the Westward Pavilion. Sir Jojo suddenly had the mood to go see that group of idiots. Okay, Commander Fong didn't even notice that he actually heaved a sigh of relief. He finally tricked the crown princess. This was great. At least it could shorten the journey by a month. The emperor was anxiously waiting in the capital, and his eyes were probably about to fall out the next day. The little girl boarded a large ship that Commander Fong had prepared for them. They entered the Wei Shi River and headed towards Dragon Flame City. To be honest, there wasn't much to see in the vast river before his eyes for the past few days. Since there was still plenty of time, Arbor decided to sneak back to Planet Fish Orchid. He summoned the seed fragment and absorbed it into his Dantian star zone. This was not the first time Jojo had absorbed the seed fragments, so the reaction was naturally better. It was obviously not as big as the first time. Furthermore, she had advanced by absorbing spirit power from the Fish Orchid planet. Therefore, the people outside had no idea what had happened to her. After spending a day and a night on Planet Fish Orchid, Arbor opened his eyes. He felt the power in his body. This time, after absorbing the seed fragments, her cultivation had directly increased from level 8 Little Spiritual Master to level 10 Great Spiritual Master. This kind of cultivation speed was already very fast, although the current him was still far from being comparable to the disciples of some clans in the Divine Prefecture. But it didn't matter. Arbor thought that he would catch up with them soon. Chapter 2440. Big Brother. Ollie walked in with a dark expression. That guy left a few days ago on a golden dragon. I heard that he had a little girl with him when he left. Hearing this, Akir jumped up from his stool. Brother Yassi, are you talking about the crown prince of the MO kingdom? Ollie pursed his lips. Akir, I already said last time that this isn't the crown prince of the tiny MO kingdom. That's the crown prince of the Divine Prefecture. Akir's eyes were filled with dissatisfaction and disbelief. I thought you were joking. Then doesn't that mean that the woman who married the crown prince of the MO kingdom has become the crown princess of the Divine Prefecture? Ming Yassi's face was dark, and he didn't say anything. Akir carefully glanced at Ming Yassi's expression, secretly pleased with herself. However, her expression didn't change. She patted her chest and said softly, "But it's not possible. How could a woman with no background from a rundown village be acknowledged by others when she came to the Divine Prefecture and returned to the imperial capital? Don't say that the Emperor of the Divine Prefecture wouldn't acknowledge such a shameless daughter-in-law. Even the civil and military officials of the court, the aristocratic families, none of them would acknowledge her existence." As she said this, she couldn't help but laugh gloatingly. How could such a poor woman from a village catch the eye of the Emperor of the Divine Prefecture? How could she catch the eye of the aristocratic families of Dragon Flame City? There was an 80% chance that when she returned, she would be subjected to everyone's disdain. Everyone would treat her like trash and sweep her aside. Otherwise, they would treat her as a little transparent and not even speak a word to her to avoid lowering her status. She didn't even need to think carefully to analyze how difficult that Xiao woman's days in Dragon Flame City would be in the future. In any case, she would suffer. Shut up. Ming Yassi waved his hand and slapped Akir without hesitation. You talk too much. Get out. Akir covered her face with one hand and looked at Ming Yassi with eyes full of shock and shame. Brother Yassi, why you hit me for that woman? It was for her, right? It must be because of that bitch. She had only verbally scolded that bitch and mocked her a little. Was that enough to make Brother Yas unhappy? Throw her out. Ming Yassi waved his hand in annoyance. He didn't want to listen to this woman's incessant nagging, especially the words Crown Princess of the Divine Land, which kept lingering in his ears. It was really annoying to listen to. Ah, Brother Yas, Brother Yas. Akir was rudely shoved out by the bodyguards. Not long after, a guard hurriedly walked in and bowed to Ming Yassi. He walked up and whispered in his ear, Imperial Noble Consort requests that you return as soon as possible. What is it? He had already obtained the Snowfield Divine Flower, so this trip had not been in vain. However, for some reason, Yas felt extremely displeased. The Underworld Province Guard handed over a red, gilded invitation. Dark Yas glanced at it, then slammed it shut with a furious smack. Return to Underworld Province. Ollie heaved a sigh of relief. They should have returned long ago. Anyway, they had already picked the Snowfield Divine Flower. There was no point in staying in Flat Mountain Town. He just didn't know what Big Brother was waiting for. Ming Yassi glanced at Ollie. He didn't know what he was angry about either. He just felt that something was wrong. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.